validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I guess happy 4th of July again, since we're wrapping up the 4th of July. I don't know about y'all, but where I'm at, we've got fireworks and firearms. Everybody shooting everything and launching everything. And we got projectiles all over the place. If the South has risen, the way these people is out here, I'm trying to stay inside. Special shout out to OG Kicks. Um, Here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. We do not let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time. And that's why we ask you guys to like and subscribe and then mash those reaction buttons while you're here. Hit the notification buttons for the upcoming shows and then go and double check the membership for all the new releases that we have for you guys. Um, we have done a lot of stuff today, more than what we thought, but not as much as I wanted. So we've gotten together all the information that we need for the upcoming Monday, where we're talking about the nuclear power, firearms laws being adjusted, and housing laws being adjusted. So you guys are going to be getting a lot of information on that on Monday. We have different topics 7 nights a week, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays like business and politics. Where on Monday we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. And then Tuesday we talk about different ways to make money, save money, invest money. We talk about stock options and everything, different ways to put your money in places legally where your money can make money for you or invest in other opportunities. and then protect your wealth from generation to generation. Now, beyond that, we have Wednesday where we talk about different countries around the world that you can invest in, and then potentially live in, depending on the situation that you're trying to get into. And we move ourselves over to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Today being Saturday, where we talk about socialization, self improvement, self development, relationship topics, negotiations, building your brand, raises, promotions, um, retirement, forced retirement, severance packages, termination, and then building your 20 and 30-year plan. We give you a lot of information on that stuff. And today we're supposed to be talking about why some women sabotage their market success. And we're going to be getting into that into an extreme detail. So I know that there's going to be some women that love to uh, dive in and object when men start articulating why women are failing their own objectives. But we're going to be trying to get through this in the most efficient way possible. He said, love the fit. Happy 4th of July. Well, happy 4th of July to you too. I greatly appreciate it. Um, then we're going to discuss on Sundays. We talk about questions and comments from the fans, where you guys have questions about what you're going through, and then I try to give you guys detailed, maybe unorthodox information to help you guys find alternatives to solutions to your situations. Uh, so if we were to dive in, because that's why I was telling you guys at the beginning of the show that we had um, some discussions about the nuclear power situation that's about to start happening, how long that's going to take. We were supposed to be talking about the firearm situation and how that's going to change things. I wanted to do some digging because, as far as I understand, the places that you can go with firearms right now is like not public functions, unless you have a permit. You can't go into government buildings, but you can go into any private owned building, and you can go into any publicly used facility that is not a government facility with a firearm, which means that you can carry your pistol to church if you wanted to. I don't think that they're going to allow you to walk into the quote unquote house of the Lord with a long barrel rifle, but you know, uh, if you have a church that closer to Texas, it's probably smarter to have quite a few of them in the congregation, especially after that one time where that church was under attack by a few people that was after a few minorities. I just think that the church should be heavily armed, because how can the warriors of the Lord fight the good fight if they're unarmed? What are we gonna do? Just hear it and pray about it? Pray that we win a battle that we're not gonna fight. That's like hoping that a pro pool player scratches on the 8 ball so I can win the game. That makes no sense. Either way, let's start. Let's go ahead and get into tonight's topic because we got a lot of information for y'all today. Uh, if we imagine a woman that's a perfect employee, first one in, last one out, her reports immaculate, projects always on time, you know, the one that you call when something's on fire, or because she calmly and competently put it out, never asking for credit for what's going on. And also, like the perfect partner, supportive, intuitive, always anticipating needs before they were ever spoken, uh, remembered every birthday, managed the emotional labor of the entire social circle, and never, ever made a fuss about it. Imagine a woman that did all of that. We would call that the perfect wife, right? But let's imagine realizations. If ladies, if y'all wake up and realize that this particular type of woman, chronically underpaid, perpetually unfulfilled, and completely exhausted, these type of women will look at their career and see that the career potentially flatlined. Looked at the relationships and seen a ledger where she was given everything and getting just enough to keep going. She had to play a game by all the rules that was given, only to find out that she was playing for a different prize than everyone else, right? Having to confront a terrifying possibility that her most prized habits, like her politeness, her diligence, her agreeableness, her humility, were the very things capping her success. Well, that's the architecture of the life of certain women that are quietly, systematically undercutting their own potential. And that is going to be the call that we're going to be discussing today. That call is actually coming from your inner self. And that's something that we really have to evaluate. Now, this isn't going to be a story about a woman per se. It's going to be the story of a pattern, and a pattern of a quiet self sabotage that is so subtle, so socially rewarded, that means women live inside it without ever realizing the cage that has been built. So today we're not just going to look at that cage, we're going to dismantle it piece by piece. And before we go any further, let's be crystal clear on what self sabotage really is. Because it's not a moment of weakness or a random mistake, it is a systematic pattern of thoughts and behaviors that works against your own stated goals. It's that unsettling feeling of driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. You're burning fuel, you're making noise, but you're not actually going anywhere. In the professional world, this isn't about getting fired for some huge dramatic error. It's about consistently making choices that are out of sync with your own ambitions. It's seeing a promotion that you're qualified for and then telling yourself that you need just one more certification. It's pricing your freelance services just low enough to get the job, but not high enough to build a real business. It is, in essence, the act of shrinking to fit a role that's too small for you because the risk of expanding feels too great. Now, in the dating market, the pattern is eerily similar. It's not about loud, explosive breakups. It's about the quiet, persistent choices that undermines your goals of a healthy partnership. It's picking emotionally unavailable partners again and again because the dynamic just feels familiar. It's hiding what you really need to be the cool girl who isn't demanding. It's pulling away the moment intimacy deepens, creating a fight to test a love that you should already be able to trust. I got to tell you, that's one of the ones that I hate the most. Some women will pick a fight with you just to see what you look like when you're mad. Bitch, don't piss me off just to see what I look like when I'm mad. You want to see what I look like when I'm mad? Just follow me like a press conference. And when society starts treating me the way they're not supposed to treat me, you will see what mad looks like. Don't Lois Lane yourself into a situation where you're in danger, because then you can see the Suge Knight in me, OJ Simpson, the situation. But you don't want to test that theory because a lot of times the reaction to certain scenarios have no comeback, and this is only a test, doesn't work with launching nukes, especially in a populated area. You know, the certain things you just can't come back off of, right? So instead of testing to see if your man is going to always be there for you and testing to see exactly how mad can be with him, you trust that every human being has a temper, probably a bad temper. And the worse off their temper used to be, probably since you haven't seen that temper, the more they've had to learn how to control it, which also means that you have the type of person that could have an explosive temper who has humbled themselves through a large quantity of extensive self training. And for you to push that person beyond their limitations so that you can get that explosive temper out of them. That's just a bad decision because an axe murderer can also be a school teacher and nobody will ever know. But you piss them off right around Halloween, and turkeys aren't the only heads that'll roll. You just got to respect folks for the sake of, and then trust that they got your back. If you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, then you're going to trust them. You're going to trust them to do the right thing by you. You know what I mean? If you're friends with the outcast in school and you always got their back, if they decide to Columbine the school, they should be standing in front of you when they're laying waste to the rest of the class because you always had their back. They should have yours. You should trust that they're not going to knock you off the way they're going to knock off everybody else, but don't test them on that. All right. Now, the most dangerous part about this, it's invisibility. It isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet and it hides in three different places. First, it's socially rewarded. The women who endlessly accommodating, who are never making things about money, who are always helpful, she is praised. She's called a team player, good woman, a loyal partner. I look forward to seeing those kind of women. Society hands her a gold star for her behaviors that are actively capping her income and her happiness. Now, she's being rewarded for slowly dismantling her own future. Second, and we got to think about this before we move on to the second scenario. And this is specifically because in a seemingly dog eat dog world where uh, the capitalism is supposed to be driven by men, um, capitalism is supposed to be driven by the most dominant, right? Once you stop saying, okay, well, this is only supposed to be accessible to the men, and then say gender eliminated, it should be accessible by the most dominant. When you put yourself in that type of category, now it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. The person that's the most dominant in the situation can be the most successful in the economy. Now, when you think about this, the women who are not dominant are not as likely to climb the ladder to the most dominant positions that are probably the most highest paying positions because they are submitting to a different authority. Now, while I look forward to the more cooperative, the more humble, the more disciplined woman, I mean, a lot of women are being taught and told by their sisters, their mothers, their grandmothers that they don't need a man and go out there and be the biggest dog on the block, take over the company, build an empire, lead your own pack, which I have no problems with to some degree. The only issue is that when you teach the support in the relationship to be a lone wolf leader of a pack, she forgets how to be supportive and then only focuses on sacrificing others for herself. She'll sacrifice the family for her own happiness, but she won't sacrifice herself for a family. Now, husbands sacrifice themselves for the family. Husbands don't have their own happiness. They don't put forth anything towards their happiness. Their happiness is on the back burner, right? So we have to pay attention to that. So back to it, the second thing that we're going to blame the wrong things, and not a lot of people understand this either, because workplaces and dating pools have real systemic biases. It's incredibly easy to blame all stalled programs on outside forces and a bad boss and a toxic dating culture and bad timing. And while those things are often real, relying on them as only explanation hides the internal patterns that are also part of the problem. It protects your ego, but it prevents any real change or improvement in yourself. And the third thing is, this is the most insidious part, this self sabotage is often disguised as a virtue. Chronic over preparation isn't seen as a fear of failure, it's praised as diligence. Deferring to others isn't seen as a lack of self trust, it's framed as being a collaborator. Overgiving in a relationship isn't seen as a failure to set boundaries or non negotiable expectations for behavior, it's called being nurturing. We've been taught to celebrate the very behaviors that keep us stuck. Ah, devil's advocate. Special shout out to Michael. He says she doesn't need you for support. She's the top dog in your family. Now go put on the dress. That doesn't work in my house. Uh, here, here's one of the things that you have to realize. One of the reasons why the women in the Philippines is probably one of the highest rated, number one actually, uh, uh, for the best wife for a traditional man or men that are looking for traditional wives. It's because the women in the Philippines can be the top dog, high earner. She can have her own career, 5 degrees from college, come back and still take good care of her husband, respect him, appreciate him, validate him, value him, right? Because what he's going to do that West women don't remember is that he's going to put his life on the line for her. He's going to put his physical condition on the line for her. Women are going to use the excuse, well, I put my physical condition on the line when I give birth, while all the women are taking Plan B birth control pills and having abortions. The man is going to lift the car. The man is going to stop traffic. The man is going to pick up the something heavy. The man is going to take the brunt of a brick falling out of the sky so that she doesn't get hit by it. The man is going to get broken up so that she doesn't have to get broken up. And if somebody's got to take that bullet like that man, the man is going to be the one that jumps in front of it, like that man who caught that bullet at that assassination attempt during that campaign rally with Donald Trump. He passed while protecting his wife from that bullet. She didn't get got. He got on her behalf. And what women do not remember is that if you are selected, this human meat shield, if that is all he is to you, is a human meat shield, you are supposed to keep him healthy and happy so that he can get out there and put his life and his freedom on the line for you in ways that you're not going to do for him. Because the average woman is not going to put her life on the line for her boyfriend or her husband. That's the man's job. You know what I mean? They complain about killing roaches for a man. So it's not the same. So even if she was a Fortune 500 woman and I was unemployed, the fact is that her ability to bring back the finances for the household doesn't change the fact that his ability to put his life and his freedom um in jeopardy to protect her is still supposed to be respected and protected by her. So it's not the same dynamic. Yeah, happy 4th of July. It says 2026. I'm pushing in front of the bus, equal rights. Well, in 2026, all the black folks are sitting in the back of the bus. I don't understand why all the people who got for sitting in the front of the bus, Rosa Parks and everybody else for sitting in front of the bus, went through what they went through so that the back of the bus where the motor is supposed to be where all the cool people sit. And now all the young folks rush to the back of the bus. And for what? I understand that the first 4 to 6 seats in the very front of the bus is for the disabled people, but I mean, damn, we can't sit in the middle. Yeah, we had like 50 something years of equality pass through, and we can't find a seat in the middle somewhere. We got to sit all the way to the back. That's where the cool kids sit. I don't understand that. So me, I'm gonna sit in the back of the car because my chauffeur's gonna drive. But my chauffeur's driving my car. So he said, her in the front of the bus. Well, even her in the front of the bus, if she's driving the bus, she's going to be in the front of the bus. And when she pays, she's going to bring me back my money, make me some dinner, go to the grocery store, clean the house. He said, well, what am I going to do? Teach the kids how to make, save, and invest money. That's what you're going to do. Way different. It's gonna be Mr. Daisy. It's gonna be driving Mr. Daisy. That's how we go. It's a whole nother dynamic. I know women are like, fuck this dude. I don't know. He don't know what he's talking about. No, I know exactly what I'm talking about. But Western women don't understand this because you got to remember that 82% of broken homes is raised by women. So the females in those relationships do not treat the boys the way they treat the girls. And I can say fairly that men don't treat the boys the same way they treat the girls. They have more responsibilities for the girls to try to protect their virtue, and they have more, attaboy for the guys that are getting laid and conquering the dating. So I mean, I understand there's a little bit of a difference there, but what we have an issue is that the women are teaching the women to be men, and the women are teaching the men to be submissive to women. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because the problem with that logic is women don't want to be the leader of their relationship because they're not attracted to a man that doesn't lead. So the only reason why it's a problem is not because she's in charge, it's because she's in charge by choice when she didn't want to be in charge by design. And then she's mad at me because I let her be in charge because that was the only way that I could make her happy was for her to be in charge. But she's not happy because I'm not in charge. So what men have to do is men have to say, well, look, to prevent this confusing diabolical paradox from happening, I'm going to be in charge regardless of what your status is. Because first of all, men don't get into relationships because of how much money a woman's got. Men don't get into relationships because of how much stuff a woman's got. So she could be a millionaire, and I'm not going to give a fuck. What she does and how she does it for me is going to be what's important. And that's what a lot of men are going to think. So I can have my own place. She can have a mansion that is so big that the cars that she parks in the garage are bigger than my house. But that doesn't change the fact that when we go places and we do things, I'm going to be making sure that she's safe, almost like her own private security guard. And that's the role of a man. But she's got to make sure that her personal security guard is well fed and well taken care of because your fighter cannot be malnourished. And that's what women don't understand. Boys need men for role models and girls need women for role models. I agree. And that's one of the reasons why women need to give their children to the fathers. Instead of taking the children and putting the fathers on child support, the women should give the children to the fathers. And only under the circumstances that the fathers want to be fathers and then claim I don't have enough time because I have to work, where they have to pay for a babysitter, that's when you give mom child support because you decided that your work is more important than your kids. But if you've got fathers that are available for their kids, you send the children to the father and let the father care for the kids while the child is with the father. Period. There shouldn't be a child support system. You pay for the kids while they're with you. I pay for the kids while they're with me. There's 7 days in a week. One of us is going to have them 4 days out of the week. The other one's going to have them 3 days out of the week. Plain and simple. Now, how that's going to work is that one of us is going to pay 4/7 at a time, and the other person is going to pay 3/7 at a time. If you want to pay less for the kids than me, then I should have the kids more often, and we can divvy it up like that. Ladies, y'all can do the single mom lifestyle and have the kids on the weekend, and dads can have the kids during the week, and then the kids will get raised a whole lot better. That's not the society that we live in right now. The society that we live in right now, women voluntarily put themselves in a position that they don't want by being the mothers of the children, having custody of the kids, then taxing the father for child support, and then not allowing the father to have custody of the kid, not allowing the father to see the kid, and then blaming the father's absence for the child's poor upbringing. Uh, if he was included, then the kid would have came out better. Wouldn't have been out there with his pants hanging off his behind with Glock switches on his ops or pregnant at 16. So you really got to think about what you're sacrificing by excluding the fathers out of the children's lives. But that's not what we were talking about today. We were talking about how the women self-sabotage. It says most kids, given the choice, they will usually live with the father. Of course, any child that knows who their father is would likely live with the father before they live with the mother because women actually raise children based off of guilt trips, psychological and emotional manipulation. Do what I say because if you don't, it hurts my feelings. Do as I say because I say so, you know. But oh, your behavior is going to be the death of me. So now my life is at risk if you don't follow my commands. This type of psychological and emotional manipulation, we all went through this when we were growing up with our mothers, our grandmothers, and everything like that. But with a man, it's like, look, this is why I want you to do it. This is what I need you to do. This is what you're going to get out of it. Plain and simple. If the shit makes sense, the kid's going to do it. No questions asked because you've already explained the dynamic. Once we build a routine, look, you do the routine, you don't give me no shit, you start getting more stuff. Plain and simple. Now that we understand our operation, we're going to work together on this. It, accountability. If dad's not coming through the way dad said he was going to come through, child steps up and says, hey, you told me that if I was on my game that you was going to give me X, Y, and Z. I don't see it. What's going on? Hold on, let me go get it. Right? Likewise, hey, we discussed that you were supposed to get A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z if you gave me certain behavior patterns, and you're not giving me those behavior patterns. I'm gonna have to start retracting some shit. No, 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 no. I'm gonna get on it. I'm gonna do better. And there's less conflict in those situations. But when you the children are smarter at younger ages. 4, 5, and 6 years old got mentalities of 14 and 15 years old, and then you insult the children by claiming that they're not old enough to know what the fuck's going on. But see, the thing is that if you teach them with younger, before they're supposed to be old enough to know, then they'll already know before they reach the age where they're expected to know. And by that time, you've already developed a behavior pattern that is now ingrained in their core that prevents them from making the choices that are so. And then you have a better relationship with them. So instead of do as I say, not as I do, which that's the other part of this. The children are smarter than what you think they are. They don't understand why you're asking them or demanding that they don't perform a certain way. But then they're watching people perform a certain way and they're not seeing the connection between the negative fallout and the instruction. Well, if I'm not supposed to do it, why is everybody else around me doing it? That is when the confusion comes in at. Then when the children get exposed to external information and all the things that parents lie to their children to control and manipulate their children come out to be lies, like Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, all of this other Tooth Fairy, all of this other stuff. That's when the children start losing confidence in the parents' instructions. They lose faith in the authority because they have been proven to be wrong. And that's when you start getting the rebellion. You don't get the rebellion when you're never wrong. And you're never wrong when you tell the children the truth and you tell the children the whole truth, even if it's the ugly truth, because you got children that'll help you hide the body if you tell them the truth. But you got children that'll rat you out if they've caught you in a lie and found the body. So the difference between your relationship with your child is going to be based off of how you treat them, right? But yes, most children would pick their fathers. You say, you love your stepmother when you stabbed her 179 times. Go sit down, boy. You need your own time out for that. That's some Norman Bates shit. Santa is real. No, he's not. If Santa Claus was real, historically speaking, Michael, if Santa Claus was real at one point in time, he would have lived a natural life and then died. Therefore, the current 2026 stories of Santa Claus, he is not still 200 plus years later flying around as a healthy fat guy, shimmying down chimneys and giving gifts to kids. Now, historically, see, he said, actually, that's a true story. Historically, a man who gave gifts to kids in a certain region might have been a true story that was embellished to a global scenario because it is true if to a degree that if say I wanted to be the Santa Claus of my city's not that big, if I could afford to acquire enough gifts for all of the people in my city and then I went door to door from bedtime until sunrise, bringing gifts to each person's house. I wouldn't be breaking into their house and then hiding the gifts in their house. I would be delivering the gifts to their house, maybe leave it on their porch or something to that effect, leave it at their back door, something like that, and then go on about my day. And when the parents wake up before the kids, is the way it usually happens, and they go check the mail and all these gifts are on the front porch and bring them inside, that type of story would be true. But the dynamic of a fat person shimmying down a chimney with a fire in it, right? Then he's gonna magically put out the fire without putting out the fire, right? Sneak into the house without breaking any windows, not tripping any alarms, not disturbing the cat or the dog, not breaking any locks on the door, fill the Christmas tree full of presents, and then shimmy back up that chimney. It's statistically, scientifically, and logically impossible. Okay. So the story can be embellished, and there could have been historically a person that did used to do that, but that person lived his life and died. So Santa Claus, since the 80s, has been a lie because he doesn't still exist. That's something that you got to think about. It says Santa's made up to make you spend your money. It's all an ad. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So there's a two-part dynamic there because it could have been a true story of the generosity of a specific human being. The same way the scripture in the Bible is a story about the experiences of at least 12 plus individuals plus Jesus and everything to that effect. The dynamic is that as it pertains to Santa Claus, um, now kids are bribed by their parents, and this is where the lie starts manifesting, not from the marketers. Kids are lied to by their parents utilizing the same Santa Claus story that they were given when they were kids to control the children. If you don't behave, there's a special person that travels the world giving children gifts. If you don't behave, you won't get gifts. You have some cultures that teach that if you don't behave, you get a lump of coal in your bag. You have some that teach that the presents won't come at all and you just won't get anything, right? The children believe, well, yeah, like I said right there, giving the giving out the coal. The children believe that they are by default entitled to presents at Christmas time. But see, if the story is true that you're supposed to behave for 365 days so that at Christmas time you get presents, if you were bad in March, you don't get presents in December. If you were bad in July, you don't get presents in December. If you're bad in October or November, you don't get presents in December. So you typically are able to get the children to behave better October, November, and December for the anticipation of potentially getting what they claim to want for Christmas. Now the marketing comes in. The parents are going to be looking for certain shit on sale. Everything that children will want gets reduced price for stuff that the parents couldn't afford to buy throughout the year. Parents try to pick that shit up and then get it for the kids. Now, for parents who can afford that, the kids get what they want. For the parents who can't afford that those are the kids who actually learn the truth. That Santa's not real. I couldn't afford to get it for you. I tried. I failed. It is what it is. He said like Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, etc. Well, Mother's Day and Father's Day are not fictitious, but I think that it's ridiculous that you're celebrating the being a mother on a separate day as celebrating being a father. And the reason why I think that's ridiculous is because mom became mom when dad was became dad, right? So when the child was born, both mom and dad on the same day was parents, which ironically, the 9 months before the child was born would be Mother's Day. And because when you found out that you were pregnant when the child was conceived, that was the day that y'all officially became parents, right? You were pre-parents because the child hadn't been born yet, but y'all were parents. So technically, Mother's Day and Father's Day is 9 months before your child's upcoming birthday. So you got to reverse engineer the math on that. And if you got more than one kid, Mother's Day and Father's Day happens more than one time out of the year, 9 months before that child's birthday. Now, Easter has a completely falsified scenario, and that's going to be based off of the ideology that you get candy out of an egg that comes out of the butt of a rabbit, which I think that's stupid. But that's neither here nor there because we were supposed to be talking about sabotaging, self-sabotaging women. But so we've kind of gone down like several rabbit holes. He said, I'm bad all year. I know. And you would get nothing every year if the story about Santa Claus was true. His Father's Day is 9 months before Mother's Day. I would have to disagree with that. I would have to disagree with that. So a baby is 1 years old at birth. A baby would technically be well. First of all, when you start talking about the creation of the child and the actual birth of the child, when the child receives a birth certificate, uh, the birth certificate, the child would be 0 years old when the child is quote unquote born. But if she's pregnant, she's the mother while pregnant. He's the father while pregnant. He's not a man without a child. If he conceived a child and he's the father of the child while she's pregnant, she's a pregnant mother. He's a father of a pregnant child. He's a father of a child for the pregnant mother. So that he's a father and she's a child. There is no difference. There isn't a delay in fatherhood. The exact moment that his DNA creates a child, he's a father. And the exact moment that is identified by mom is pregnant, that means he's a dad in that exact same moment. He's pregnant, I'm a dad, exact same moment. There is no delay in that. You know what I mean? I understand that with the observations of abortion and all of this other stuff, that she could be pregnant. He could be a pre-mom phase kind of situation, and then terminate the child, and then he can lose out on his opportunity to be a father. But no, the dynamic is still going to be the same. At the exact same moment that the child is recognized as existing inside of the woman, where she is a mother with a baby, pregnant, is the exact same moment that he's a father. So Mother's Day and Father's Day are not going to be at two different times of the year. It's not going to be two different times of the year. You're not going to find the father. Oh, F on the shelf is an ad campaign, but you're not going to find the father 9 months later and be like, oh, congratulations, you're a dad now. No, that doesn't work like that. Um, I understand. Mathematically speaking, is that if they put mom it right after, so think about how you have your holidays because without going through every single one of them. You've got your Valentine's Day, you've got, and that's like February. January, you basically recover from Christmas because you have your New Year's Eve that rolls over to New Year's Day. So that's your overnight to January holiday. You have your Valentine's Day in February. Then you have like Mardi Gras, Carnival, stuff like that in March. Right after Carnival, you have Easter. Right after Easter, you have Mother's Day. Right, Mother's Day in May, Father's Day in June. Right, and then right after that, you've got your 4th of July and then all the rest of the holidays. Right. So the ad campaign process of it is we're going to sell a bunch of stuff for Mother's Day in May or at the end of April, and then we're going to sell a bunch of stuff for Father's Day in June or at the end of May. That's where the ads come in at. Now back to the main discussion because we were supposed to be here talking about self sabotage. When we talk about success, we got to be clear about that. Professionally, success isn't just a job title, it's the recognition, demand, and payment for the value that you actually deliver. It's compensation that reflects your impact, not just the hours that you sat in the chair. In the dating world, it's a relationship where time, attention, and commitment are exchanged equitably, where your vulnerability is met with safety, where your partner is chosen for how they align with your future, not how familiar they feel to your past pain. And this is what's being sabotaged, not just the promotion or a relationship, but the full unbridled potential of your market value in every area of your life. So, why does this happen? Well, if you're smart, capable people, why do we actively take part in a system that works against our own interests? Well, the answer is in our internal architecture, the psychological wiring that runs the show behind the scenes. Think of this like this: your mind has an internal alarm system. When you're about to do something that's misaligned with your goals, like accepting salary that you know is too low, or texting back a person who consistently disrespects you, that system goes off. It creates a physical cue, a knot in your stomach, feeling of dread, wave of anxiety. That feeling is data. It's a signal that something is wrong here. Um, I think you're missing a point. You're going. You copied all of the holidays, but you're missing the point. The point was that Mother's Day is a advertised on a separate month as Father's Day because they get promotions and deals sold on different months. Every month is a different sale. That was the logic behind that discussion. But good job for googling the rest of the holidays leading up to September. My biological clock. Well, it's not really a biological clock. Even a woman's biological clock. It's not really her biological clock. The understanding is that you're putting yourself in a position to fail because subconsciously you do not believe you should succeed. That's not a biological clock. A biological clock would be the woman's fertility beginning at puberty, and the biological clock is the time left that she has to safely give birth to children. So outside of the legal age of birth bearing, we have puberty striking between 9 and 13 years old, depending on the child, and them being able to be sexually active between 13 and 16 years old, depending on what country you're in, whether or not that's socially acceptable or not is irrelevant. Biologically, that's the case. And babies having babies, where they can start producing children as young as 14, 15 years old and be mothers at 15 and 16 years old and be able to continuously produce children for the next, I don't know, 20 years. Because you're looking at if the first child is dropped at 15, you have uh, uh, 15 more years. That's 30. So technically 25 years. You could probably do a child every year for 25 years, and that's a career birth bearing if you had children every year. But from 15 to 40, you could potentially produce up to 25 children with one woman if you were doing it based on biology, not the legal limits. Um, the biological clock acknowledges the fact that even though women are capable of having birth after 40, it is harder because they have less eggs available and the births become more and more complicated, especially if they've had more than one child. So the issue that you have there, yeah, little rabbit identity. The issue that you have there is that if the woman wants to raise a family, or be involved in the creation of a family. The time that she has to successfully perform that is working backwards in comparison to her drive to achieve a career. She can start the family first and then spend the rest of the time running the career. But if she starts the career, she has to stop that career at some point in order to focus on the family because it's not psychologically possible for the children to come after the career because there is that first 5 or 7 years of childhood that requires the discipline in the children in order for the children to cooperate with a co-parenting, every parent's got a job environment, right? And if you have the type of children that are well behaved, where you're not getting called off the job and picking the kids up from school, they're getting suspended and expelled and everything like that, getting arrested and all this other stuff, you have to recognize that the family has to be under control in order for the career to be able to skyrocket because the more demand that your career has, the less time you're spending at home. So if she wants to be married to the job, the husband has to stay at home with the kids. If the husband is married to the job, then the wife has to stay home with the kids. If the husband and the wife is married to the job, like they do in Asia, the kid stays home alone or with a relative, a grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, something to that effect. But the child still got to come out 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. So by the time she's 35, 40 years old in her career, president of the company kind of thing, her kid is 15. But if she's like 35, 40 years old and she starts talking about having children now, she's not working because when the older ages, you start having complicated pregnancies. And usually, what the doctors recommend with a complicated pregnancy is that the woman doesn't work. So that means whatever her life choices were, they are now pivoting specifically to have this child. So it's easier for you to just get the child situation out of the way first and then build the life that you want to have after that, even though it is not as easy as you would think. But it's going to be even harder for you to choose to backtrack and start a family when you're driving that career path. So that's what we were talking about with the biological clock. Now, from a young age, many women are taught to override the alarms of paying attention to these things. They're told that other people's discomfort is more important than their own. And that being difficult or demanding is a social death sentence. So they learn to silence the alarm. Some of them do at least, because we got a lot of them that are loud and obnoxious and overly masculine. Typically in the minority communities, but there's not much we can do about that because it's a generational rotation where the next generation is watching the negative performances of the last generation, and the last generation provides celebrations to the next generation's inappropriate behavior. Like you see a lot of these younger children, 8, 12, 15 years old, dirty dancing on social media like the parents used to do. Some people can say, well, they got pretty good choreography for their age, but you're dancing like adults and you don't even know what that represents. And that's not uh, uh, acceptable to expose them to that at such a young age. But that's what the parents think is the thing to do. And that's what the kids are going to think will be the thing to do as they get older. You said fireworks going off at your place? Because over here, we got gunshots. Oh, yeah, they're out there with the pistols and Dracos and they're out here like Yosemite Sam, just letting them rip. Now, over time, uh, these women don't even hear what they're being told anymore. They simply internalize the story that says that this is just who I am and I'm not a confrontational person and I'm just happy to help. That story masks the fact that they are consistently acting against their own ambitions. Digging a layer deeper, and you often find roots in self esteem and trauma. Self sabotage is profoundly linked to what you believe your worth is. And one of the wildest things is that when a woman tells somebody that, oh, she broke up with a guy, right? And she'll say, well, he doesn't value himself. He had low self-esteem, blah, 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 blah. I have found it hard to understand why society in this day and age has to diagnose everything and everybody to validate why people do the things that they do. Eh, But when she breaks up with him, simply because she wasn't satisfied. Instead of telling the truth, she has to make it seem like there was something wrong with him, which is why she left for her own best interest, her own safety and concerns. And now she's a better person because she left this dude that was dragging her down. And when they start saying things, he's got a low self esteem, he was traumatized from his past, something happened in his childhood with his mama, and all these other things. And I'm sitting over here thinking, wait, men with high self esteem already have to date down. So if he thought that he wasn't a valuable man, that means he got a woman that was further beneath him than what he thought he was entitled to. And you still wasn't good enough because he wasn't happy in that relationship and y'all didn't work out. But if he was an 8 and he thought he was a 4, and an 8 will date a 4. If he's a 4, he's dating a 2, and you're claiming that you're a 10, but you got with a dude who thought you was a 2, and he and y'all didn't work out because your ass wasn't acting right, but you left because you wasn't happy. Look, lady, we gotta talk. This is what I'm trying to point out. In high stakes moments, like a salary negotiation, you have a choice: endure short term pains of potential rejections, or choose the long term, slow burn pain of being undervalued. Men usually choose the latter. For someone with a fragile sense of self worth, the choice is almost always to retreat to what feels emotionally safer in the moment, avoiding the conflict and staying likable. Unresolved trauma or anxiety works the same way. The mind develops protective strategies that were once necessary for survival: shrinking, appeasing, staying quiet to avoid danger. But those, okay, happy 4th of July. I appreciate that. But those strategies, which were smart in the past, threaten the environment, be, becoming incredibly unhelpful in a present environment where growth requires boldness. So you're using a wartime strategy in peacetime, and it's destroying your own supply lines. So for a woman, this is all supercharged by gender norms. From the moment that the women are little girls, they're bombarded with messages like be nice, be accommodating, be modest. We would hope. Some of them, I don't need no man, men ain't shit, and don't trust them. That's why the women are willing to choose the bear over the man with no logic behind that reasoning. You have some women that are told, don't be too loud. The message is going to be clear. Your likability is more important than your power. While the research is not always consistent, some studies and reviews suggest women report higher feelings of imposter syndrome in certain professional contexts. It's that feeling of being a fraud, which is a phenomenon that disproportionately affects women in professional settings. In fact, some surveys report that around 2/3 to 3/4 of professionals, including many women in leadership roles, have experienced imposter feelings at some point. The result is a devastating internal conflict. Now, a woman might consciously want a promotion, but subconsciously fear the backlash of being seen as aggressive. So she self censors. She softens her language. She manages everyone else's potential reactions instead of managing her own career. She's so busy making sure she isn't disliked that she forgets to make sure that she is respected. And the market, whether it's a boardroom or a dating app, is brutally efficient. It listens to your actions, not your intentions. We had that discussion on the show a couple weeks ago when we were talking with Sterling about his hatred towards Walmart. And I explained to him thoroughly, bro, your beef is not with Walmart. While I can understand why you would dislike being part of the disadvantaged group, the fact is your beef is with your insurance company and pharmaceutical company. Your beef isn't with Walmart. If Walmart sells the product at the asking price of the pharmaceutical company and your insurance company is not willing to pay for it, even though it's in their policy that they're supposed to, the insurance company not paying for your medication is the problem. And pharmaceutical company overpricing the medication where you can't afford it is the other problem. Neither one of those got anything to do with Walmart. You just don't like the pay that you're getting because you accepted that pay when they offered it. They said this is how much we think the work is going to cost, and you said, I'll take it. You can't blame them for offering you a low price and you accept it. Okay? Construction workers will tell a Mexican dig ditch for $50 a day, and the Mexican will say, I'll take it. And American will be like, nah, man, I gotta get paid like $30 an hour to be in the sun. I got a degree, right? Two 15s and a 30, right? Big difference. If you set one, you don't get hired all the time. But two, if you set the par and say, I must get X number of dollars or more, I must get certain type of benefits or more in order for me to work for you, you as the person will only work for somebody that's willing to pay you what you're worth. But if in a desperate situation, I need money, I'll take whatever they got to offer just so that I can have money coming in right now. I'm still going to do the best I can. I'm still going to give them my 100%, but they're paying me peanuts just so that I can have something. You got to understand, you devalued yourself just to get a job. And a lot of the times, I can tell you that back in the day, before I learned all this information, I could have found myself doing the same thing. That you're overqualified, which means that you should be guaranteed the job. You're willing to take whatever they're going to offer because you need a job right now. You technically qualify for a job that pays you $10 or $15 an hour more than their offer. You're not going to negotiate the price. You're not going to ask for more. You might ask them how long before your raise would happen, and they typically tell you after 90 days, but you don't discuss if they're going to give you more. And then you decide that based on whatever tier system that they're offering, if that's not enough, that you're not going to take that, you're going to go look for another job somewhere else. That's the that's the difference in the situation. So let's get tactical. Now, these psychological drivers show up in very specific, repeatable behaviors. So I'm going to walk you through 7 of the most common patterns. And what's key here is that each one has a near perfect parallel in both your career and your dating life. So I want you guys to pay attention to this. The underlying fear is going to be the same, only the context is going to change. Take for example, before we get into that, Michael says, I feel like the king on top of the hill looking down on the peasants in the valley below. Sweet fireworks. Oh, okay. So you are above the area where the fireworks are happening and you've got a sky view. Fantastic. Um, everything's level here. Everything's level here. and there's no uh sky. Uh, Actually, everything calmed down now. I think that they ran out of money for fireworks. They had to take their ass to bed. They need to take their ass to bed, but because technically, if you run fireworks until midnight, that should be it, and it's like 12:48 Eastern Standard Time right now, so it should have stopped already, right? But if you're watching the finale wrap up, because fireworks are not cheap, it's like $500 to $1,000 to really put on, probably $2,000 to put on an hour-long fireworks show where it's constant fireworks. The average American spends a few $100s on fireworks just so that they can have 30 minutes worth of entertainment. And if you have a multitude of families in the same area that are doing the fireworks thing, then they can stretch it, because if family number one spends like $250 and family number two spends $250, and you've got like five families on the same block, they could take turns launching their fireworks. It's still $1,000 worth of fireworks. It's just spread across four families. And the kids are out there taking turns launching their fireworks, and that might stretch to an hour and a half, but it's still, shit's not cheap. Fireworks just starting. What kind of retirement home are you living in if fireworks just started at 1 o'clock in the morning? Oh yeah, you're in California, huh? Well, if you're in California and the fireworks are just starting, that makes sense because you guys don't reach midnight for another 2 hours. But it's still going to be like an hour and a half worth of fireworks that's going to wrap up at midnight. So if you're in California or Washington or something like that, yeah, exactly. You're in California. You're on the West Coast. So being on the West Coast, it ain't even sunset yet. So you guys are like I said, gonna start working your way into, y'all ain't hit sunset yet. It's freaking the 3 hour difference between like 1 o'clock in the morning for Florida, and what would that be? 10 o'clock at night in California. Y'all don't have sunset at 10 o'clock at night. Shit, sun go down at like 8. Look, he said it's only 10 o'clock. Yeah, I did the calculations right. The sun go down at 8. What the fuck you mean? It's still up and it's 10 o'clock at night. Okay, yeah, California, Washington State, it's the same area. Y'all off the coast of the Pacific, right? You have to think about that. Which still puts you in a position that typically fireworks are going to last for a couple of hours. So right at midnight, it should wrap itself up. It's just that because y'all are over there on Pacific Standard Time, that it's just getting started, and that means for the next couple of hours, you guys are going to be listening to drive-bys. Our drive-bys are over. Oh boy. So let's talk about the first pattern: fear driven avoidance of opportunity. So, this is going to be one of the first of 7 reasons why women self sabotage. Professionally, this is the woman who won't apply for a job unless she meets 100% of the qualifications. She sees a stretch role, and her first thought isn't, I could learn that, but I'm not ready for it. She'll turn down a speaking gig because of a crippling fear of judgment. I don't want the people to make fun of me. I don't have the right outfit. I stutter when I talk. She'll procrastinate on a critical application until the deadline has conveniently passed, giving her a built-in excuse that I missed the deadline. Right? He said the books are echoing off the canyon walls. Oh, the explosions that are happening are echoing off the canyon walls. Shit. I'm going to be honest with you. Throughout today, I did not notice that today was the 4th. I thought yesterday was the 4th. We were talking about Happy 4th of July. I forgot that my shift started right before the 4th. which means that I would have two Fourth of July shows because my my show would start when the Fourth of July begins, and my show would end when the Fourth of July ends. So throughout the day, I thought today was like the fifth or the sixth. I freaking forgot. There was no there throughout the day. There, at least on my block, there was no fireworks in the area. Um, but I could hear in the distance like some fireworks. And I figured, people who go to work, they're gonna pop their fireworks on the weekend. I didn't think they were doing it because it was the fourth. I thought they were doing it because they didn't have time to do it when the fourth happened on like Wednesday or Thursday. So I didn't know what fucking day it is. Like in my house, we said Happy Father's Day 2 weeks in a row because we didn't know which fucking day it was. It was like Happy Father's Day. You told me that last week. I don't really know. It doesn't really. It's just another day. Because I mean, what are we gonna do? Waste a bunch of money to like eat? Like fuck. Like just eat the regular food that we eat every other day. Like maybe get something extra. I had some pulled pork and some macaroni and cheese the other day, but it wasn't because it was the Fourth of July. It was because I wanted some fucking pulled pork and some macaroni and cheese. I should have got some mashed potatoes and gravy to go with it. He said the booms from the fireworks. Oh yeah, that shit gets crazy after a while. I said that's funny. Somebody asked me about the celebration on the fourth about a week ago. I answered that I don't keep track of the holidays. I don't keep track of the holidays. I don't keep track of the days. Matter of fact, I am writing so many scripts for this show that I put the date on the show, on the script. And then what I do is before I start the show, so that I'm not delayed further beyond what I'm already delayed when I start the show, I actually on my computer, I scroll down, I check the time and date on my computer. It tells me what the date is. I go into my search history and then I search for today's date and it pulls up a script. That's it. It pulls up something I wrote last week. It pulls up something I wrote 2 weeks ago. It pulls up a script and then I use it, which is one of the reasons why Monday and Tuesday is typically done like that week because I wanted to be up to date, most relevant information. But Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which is like common knowledge, evergreen information, I can do that one 3 weeks ago, and that script is available. So I have them nowadays. I have them by date, and I just type the date in. Whatever it says on the computer, that's the date I type in, and that's the date that's the show that we're covered for the day. I don't know what day it is. I don't know like because I work for myself, I don't have like dedicated days off. Like I just know what today is because that this is my payday. I know what today is because this is my day off. I take a day off because I don't feel like working. And I don't take a day off because I feel like I can use more money. So I, there's no um there's no landmarks in my life that would indicate certain days out of the week. I had a doctor ask me what the date was when he was doing the examination and testing my memory, and I'm like, I don't know. I know what day of the week it is. I know what president we have. I know what country I'm in. But when I was told what day my appointment was, I put it on a calendar. I put all the information on that notification, and then I made my way to the appointment because my phone told me go to the doctor today. Not because today was a specific date, but because my phone said today I had a doctor's appointment. So I went. But in the notification, it doesn't have today's date on it and doctor's appointment. It just says doctor's appointment, 1 o'clock. All right, let's get there. Let's get there. It's 10:30. If I get started now, I'll make it there on time. That's it. So when we start talking about holidays, holidays are not booked on my calendar. Why? Because I don't celebrate the holidays the way I used to. I'm not wasting money on shit like that. The $300 that I would have spent on fireworks, With PTSD, I could put that $300 in a brokerage account and make me some money. Okay. If I've got extra money to buy fireworks, I got extra money to get my hair done. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. Like there's priorities around here that we really working on. I could get my scalp braided back instead of wasting $300 on fireworks. You know what I mean? We just got to really think about the priorities of lifestyle creep, right? Get me like 6 or 7 new outfits instead of buying a bunch of fireworks. You know what I'm saying? Now, when we talked about this self sabotage from step number one, pattern number one, the root cause is going to be of a paralyzing fear of rejection, failure, or criticism, amplified by uh, perfectionism. So, if the only acceptable outcome is flawless, and that's when women want to be flawless, they want to slay, then any risk of imperfection feels intolerable. It's safer not to try at all than to try and be found wanting, meaning that you tried and you fucked it up. You don't want to do that, so they don't even try. The parallel to this, because that's how it happens in the corporate world. The parallel to this in dating is almost one to one. And this is going to be the person who avoids dating altogether, convinced that there's no one good person out there. Or more subtly, it's the person who's pulling away the moment a relationship starts to feel real and serious. They refuse to escalate intimacy because the risk of being rejected by someone they actually care about feels too high. They sabotage the connection to protect themselves from the potential pain of it ending. It says low self-esteem. Well, see, that's the thing. Um, you cannot blanket the entire ability to destroy your ability to succeed with low self-esteem. Um, Fear is not low self-esteem. Fear might be a level of anxiety. It could be trauma-induced anxiety, but it is not necessarily low self-esteem. Devaluing yourself can come from low self-esteem, not believing that you're good enough, not believing that you are worth what or are entitled to what you're not getting, right? But believing that you're going to make a mistake. You might be overestimating the requirements of success and then underestimating your ability to perform. That's not necessarily a low self esteem. For example, college students might know the topic, but we call them bad test takers. A bad test taker is somebody who can answer all the questions right in a low pressure situation, tutor somebody else how to do it in a low pressure situation, do all the homework, complete it 100%, and get at least 95% of it correct, no pressure situations. But put them in front of that midterm exam and they got a 65. Put them in front of that final, they got a 80, they got a 54 or a 72, right? It's not low self-esteem because you second guessed yourself because you thought the question was harder than what it was and you believe that you got the wrong answer, which self-doubt is not low self-esteem. It's just not believing that you knew what you were doing. You're second guessing yourself. That's not necessarily low self-esteem. But when you second guess yourself, your natural instinct might be that the answer is B, but you might think, nah, the answer's gotta be C. You erase it and put it as C. And then you come to find out that you were wrong because the answer was B originally, right? That's not necessarily low self-esteem. Now, low self-esteem does play a role in some self-sabotage because if you don't believe that you deserve to succeed, you believe that you should suffer, you don't have enough value in yourself, then yes, that can be a situation where there is some low self esteem involved. But a lot of the self-sabotaging behavior is conditional, subconscious training that's been embedded based on your upbringing and your societal involvement. You know, it says anxiety syndrome. Take 5 milligrams of Valium and go take your test. That doesn't work. What would work for you more effectively would be to proactively study less more often, meaning instead of cramming 13 hours before the test, you spend 30 minutes to an hour a day every day after school reviewing the information until it becomes second nature to you, so that when you take the test, then you're able to handle the situation. And instead of evaluating the assignments at its easiest form, you evaluate the assignments in their most complex form so that you have the ability to practice and nurture your critical thinking skills. Remember what we talked about yesterday, that you practice life on hard mode. Take a regular shower and then spend the last 2 to 5 minutes in the shower with just the cold water on. In doing so, you can have the natural experience of showering with hot water or warm water, but then you also train yourself to be capable of showering in cold water. Now, what does that do? In a scenario where you got to take a shower and all you have accessible to you is cold water, you are used to that because you are conditioning yourself to be able to endure that particular type of situation. With the college scenario, teachers typically show you the information at its easiest form to help you understand it. Have you practice the information at its easiest so that you can learn how to do it. Then they critical thinking test you on its hardest difficulty, which you were not taught critical thinking throughout the process of learning that subject. So when you go to the test, you don't know how to take 4 different concepts and put them together and make one result. But that's not necessarily low self esteem, and volume isn't going to help that. It was a skill that you weren't taught while you were learning another skill. Critical thinking is something that everybody has accessible to them, but it isn't honed. Finding another way is a skill set that is accessible to other people. That is comes from critical thinking, but it's critical thinking and street skills. And most people don't have that skill set trained to them. Usually, in a codependent scenario, what people do is if they don't know what way to go, they immediately defer to their trusted confidant, a mother, a father, whoever the caretaker is in the household, whoever the most responsible one in the house is. Instead of them trying to find another way and outsource information, they put all of the pressure of figuring the situation out onto another person because they, for whatever reason in themselves, don't want to go and get the information on their own, but they know that there's more information out there and they don't know what to do with the information that they have. And they don't have enough information to make a sound decision. So they're going to defer to somebody else who's going to do all the research and get the work done for them. Trader says there are two extremes: low self esteem and grandiose delusion. I guess, yeah, I can see that as two different extremes. But what we're talking about is somewhere in the middle where you're still fucking up the rotation, but it's not always going to be identified as simply low self esteem. It says, I usually suffer from the second one. Well, most people do. It's called being optimistic. You believe in a perfect world that the outcome is going to be excessively in your favor. Now, the older you get and the more situations don't end in your favor, the more pessimistic you become and you start rationalizing failure as a legitimate outcome possibility. But that doesn't stop you from trying. And that's what we're talking about right now, is that some people put so much pressure on themselves, and pressuring yourself is not low self-esteem, but putting so much pressure on yourself to succeed to the magnitude where you're overwhelming yourself. You When you get overwhelmed, you shut down, and that's not low self-esteem either. But I mean, there is a condition for it. It can be idolized or itemized in some kind of way, but that emotional shutdown because you overwhelmed your own senses that causes you to fail in some situations. It says the pendulum effect. Well, the pendulum effect is going from one extreme to the next. We're not going from one extreme to the next. What we're actually doing is we're itemizing in a specific situation in a specific area of your psyche that you're having repetitive behavior patterns that are sacrificing your success. So it's not necessarily a pendulum. So a pendulum effect is like bipolar behavior. A pendulum effect is going from extremely good to extremely bad and back. A pendulum effect is going to be positive decisions to negative decisions back to positive decisions. But recognizing that uh, you could be successful, but you don't believe that you could be successful. Self doubt isn't necessarily low self esteem, but it could sabotage your ability to succeed. People procrastinating. Procrastination is not low self esteem. It's a lack of time management. But at the end of the day, if you know that you have a test coming up and you don't study for it until the night before the test, you will be less prepared for the test because you're only going to take in the first 2 hours worth of information, and the remaining 15 or 20 hours that you spend studying for the test is time wasted because if you didn't pick it up in the first 2 hours, you're not going to pick it up today. And if you need this information for tomorrow, it's not likely that you're going to be successful tomorrow if you're trying to do 6 months worth of information in 12 hours. It says drug addicts are great at that, swinging from drugs to religion. No, I don't think that's true. So people who fuck up their lives will go from making extremely bad decisions in their life. There are some people who will end up, quote unquote, turning over a new leaf and then claiming that they're now religious. They have a past of sin that they try to mask with a present area of uh, community service, meaning that they're giving back to their community, start up a church. They try to guide people verbally because they're not putting any money into anybody because most pastors don't have jobs. Uh, they guide people verbally into a different direction. Hopefully, provide them with the motivation to do better, and they can coin bad decision making in the past as reasons why you should not allow yourself to make bad decisions because certain things that you do cannot be undone and your past can negatively impact your future. And the trauma from your past can cause you to make bad decisions in your present, which will also negatively impact your future. So, and then when you think about, because like criminals, not necessarily drug addicts, but criminals can, do crime on the streets, go to jail, find Jesus in jail, get out on an early release program, and then get back on the street and commit crime. You got people who go to jail, change religions, come out with a different religion, and they still go back out there and do crime. You've got OnlyFans girls with crosses on their neck claiming to be Christians, but selling sin is not what a Christian or a Catholic or a Jew would do. So you can't claim a religion and then sell your body on the internet. It's not the same. So again, that's not the pendulum effect. So I think you have a misconception of or you're misrepresenting. You might have a right conception of it, Michael, but I think you're just using the wrong examples of the pendulum effect. Trader says, I tried to tell an individual with low self-esteem that she could learn anything that she wanted, but I think she did not believe me. It's not comfortable feeling. Um, okay, so one of the worst things that you have is when someone has true low self-esteem, especially when they're wallowing in self-doubt and in some situations self-pity. You can claim that she can do better. But until you start doing better for her, she's not going to believe it. For one, A lot of women are raised that they don't need a man, which means that they don't need a man's opinion. Men are stupid, men are wrong, and this is what's embedded into the children. It makes it hard for adult women who learn this behavior from other women to be able to trust the decision making skills of a man because they're taught not to believe what men say. Men are going to manipulate you to get into your pants. Men are going to lie to you. Men are going to cheat on you. They're going to deceive you. All of this other stuff that's embedded into the women, where ultimately a good man that comes up and teaches or tries to teach a woman how to do better for herself, the women are going to be resentful and hateful towards that man because their core upbringing was not to trust any information from a man, right? So it's not necessarily just this low self esteem or just the self pity or just the low valuation of oneself. It is also the core upbringing that the source of the information will devalue the information in and of itself. We don't trust the source, so the information is not valid, even though the information could change our life. We have people these days who have no respect for homeless people, and some homeless people can tell you what you need to know to get your shit together. But because the source is not stable, the source cannot give you information about stability. A lot of people will try to criticize somebody who's talking about how to keep your relationship together. If you're not married, the source is being criticized because they don't want that information from the source. So if the source isn't married for 20 years, then the source doesn't have the validity to provide the information, thus devaluing the information because the source that's delivering the information isn't married. So it's not so much, again, a lot of the times it's not just low self esteem. A lot of the times it is the core upbringing of an individual and also learned behavior of an individual that causes them to not want to, whether consciously or subconsciously, to improve from their current situation. But once self realization happens that they are failing on their own merit, not societal hindrances, that's when the person starts making changes. Yes, people hate change. That is correct, 100%. Uh, People would father live with misery. Oh, people would rather live with misery than to make a change. It's not natural. Um, People who grew up in misery are only familiar with misery. And those are going to be the people who are going to more often than not maintain familiarity because people would rather live a life of familiarity than to live a life of new beginnings. And if that familiarity turns out to be misery, then they would rather stay in misery, rather stay in conflict, rather stay in toxicity because that is what they're familiar with. And what's not natural is the new beginnings, a new environment, a chaos-free environment. They're not used to a chaos-free environment. So they're not going to feel comfortable in a chaos-free environment. In a chaos-free environment, they will create chaos, right? Now, the market impact is going to be brutal here because in both cases, the woman is going to self-select out of competition, meaning that she's going to take herself out of the fold. She takes her name out of the running before anyone else can run, right? She'll be the volunteer to step down, right? The market doesn't read this as fear; it reads it as a lack of ambition or a lack of interest, reinforcing the very stereotypes that she's trying to fight, right? When a woman takes herself out of the dating pool because she doesn't believe that she can handle that relationship, right? People don't believe that she's afraid, that she's not accepting invitations to prom because she's afraid of that she can't dance. They feel like she is not interested. She could be highly interested, just afraid to perform. And being afraid to perform is not low self-esteem. So notice the patterns that we have here are more often fear driven than low self esteem. This isn't something that you can take a antidepressant medication and fix the problem. You have to overcome fear by recognizing what causes your fear and then learn how to adapt to that fear, where you have what is identified as courage, the ability to continue to take action in the midst of fear. And that's something that is developed and nurtured, not something that just comes naturally. People aren't born courageous. People take risks. And the more often they take risks and see a positive outcome, the more often they take risks. The courage to take a risk comes from taking a risk in the past and being successful. Take bikers, for example. They weave through traffic because the first time they did it, they were successful. The eighth time they did it, they were successful. They're doing it at faster speeds now. Yeah, you might fall every now and again, but you were successful more often than you failed. So as long as I can get back on that bike and do it again, that's what we're going to do. Right? Uh, the biggest mistake that parents make with their children is that they don't teach them not to fear failure. I think that's the second biggest mistake. I think that is the second biggest mistake, but I do agree with you on that. They teach their children as a byproduct of the biggest mistake. The biggest mistake that parents teach their children indirectly, accidentally, is that the parent did not believe that the child at such a young age could perform that task. And because the parent didn't believe that the child could do it, the child starts believing that the child can do it. Once the child develops self doubt from external doubt, success is impossible. I tell parents all the time, a child can push a boulder up a hill by themselves because they can. That same child will push two boulders up the hill just to outdo their friend. But as soon as an adult tells that child that a handful of pebbles is a lot, the boulder seems impossible. If you don't limit the children, there are no limits to what the children can accomplish. The advancements of technology only occurs from removing all limits. That's the reason why we have hypotheticals. That's the reason why we have theory. That's the reason why we have hypothetical theory. Okay? When you start removing the limitations of societal expectations, removing the limitations of societal norms, removing limitations of uniformism, and start thinking outside of the box, start thinking, going down one rabbit hole of corruption and one rabbit hole of justice, and another rabbit hole of the alternative of both of those, you start finding the possibilities that can come about. The Take, for example, medicine. Medicine is one of the most unethical things that we research, but it's necessary in order for you to have medication that works against diabetes and cancer and other such things. You had to be testing on humans, or before you got to humans, you had to be testing on animals that are unwilling participants of the exams, which means that you have to capture them, you have to cage them, you have to hold them against their will, poke them, prod them, run blood tests on them, change their genetic DNA structures, corrupt their core psychological well-being, and ultimately, in some situations, kill them off until you find the right cocktail of chemicals to be a solution to whatever it is that you're trying to do. You infect them with a virus where they otherwise would have never gotten that virus in nature, just so that you can provide them with a cure. And if that cure doesn't work, you've effectively killed them. And you keep doing that and replacing the specimen. That's why they don't call them people. That's why they don't call them human beings. Call them specimen when they're involved in the test, so that they can detach their emotion to the fact that they're killing people to find cures that kill people. Right? But in order for you to get to the cure, a lot of people are going to have to die. Now, there's only two ways that you can do that. You're either going to find sick people, and try to cure them before they die, or you're going to find healthy people, get them sick, and then try to cure them before the virus becomes incurable. Like cancer, there are several stages of cancer. They know which stages are incurable because they've gotten people infected with cancer. And after they got them infected with cancer, there were certain areas of cancer that could be cured and certain areas of cancer that could not. Once you cross over the threshold of we can't do nothing else but make you comfortable until you die, that's when you know stage 4 cancer. It's a healthcare as an excellent example. Should we get the COVID-19 booster or not? No, you shouldn't. Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. Notice how I said that. So here's the thing: your body builds an immune system based on its exposure. The COVID 19 virus affected individuals of certain age groups. If I remember correctly, you were more likely to get it under the age of 18, and if I remember correctly, over the age of 65. You had very few people who didn't already have life threatening illnesses and smokers who were middle aged and got it. So if you're 25, 38, 41, 52, you don't need that because you should have been exposed to people who had COVID and are now hosts and carriers of it. You should have been exposed to people who have COVID and didn't show the symptoms. You should have been exposed to direct contact with surfaces because remember, COVID was a fungus. You should have been exposed to surfaces that had COVID on it because Americans are nasty. We cough on our hand and we'll open a door, but we don't wash our hands on a regular basis. We sneeze, we got the mucus in our hand. We don't always go and look for a place to wash our hands after that, right? We pick our nose, dig in our ears, all this other stuff. And then we touch surfaces that are community surfaces where other people are going to come and touch that same surface. We'll pick our nose and flick it off onto the furniture, get up and leave. Our bodily fluids are still on this furniture. Somebody else is going to sit down and touch that. Ew, it's sticky, right? But they're not going to get up and go wash their hands. They're going to wipe it on their clothes and sit there and keep doing it, right? So we should have already come in contact with it. So in my observation, based on that, no, you shouldn't. However, however, 70, 80 years old, um, probably want to have a little small dose of it injected into you on a regular basis so that you can build an immunity to it so that it doesn't kill you. Toddlers, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. I don't know what the youngest age should be if you've exposed them to that. But think about this: Ebola virus. What other viruses are out there? The H1N1 and all this other stuff. Like, do you really want to expose them? Because like chicken pox leads to shingles when you're older. You expose your kids to chicken pox, but if you've exposed them to chicken pox by giving them the vaccine, when they're in their 50s and 60s, they can end up with shingles. I had a buddy of mine, he missed like 3 months of work at 32, and he had shingles. You only have shingles after you have chickenpox vaccination. Strange. So should you really get it? I didn't. How will that impact me when I'm older? I don't know yet. But if I've experienced enough individuals that had enough of the COVID in them that I should have been directly exposed to it and my health is fine, then I should have developed a type of immunity to not get it. Now, does that mean that if it came back and it was highly concentrated in a specific area, like if I was a doctor or a nurse or something like that my immune system would not end up being broken down enough where it would actually overcome me? Doesn't mean that I wouldn't catch it in that scenario. But in the experiences that I have right now, I'm 10 to 20 feet between me and the next person. I don't do a lot of communicating with a lot of people with physical contact. I've got riot gloves to have hands-on confrontations with law enforcement. I don't see myself in situations where I would actually be able to come in direct contact with a currently highly contagious individual. Matter of fact, I get stuff delivered to me so that I don't have to go out. So I would say for me, no, but for some people, they might do it. I believe that is correct for me. Yeah, yeah, it is. I'm just gonna give you. I'm gonna give you. I'm glad that you were able to confirm it. Yeah, I'm gonna give you the best of my abilities of what was going on because when I researched COVID, I had found out that less people died from COVID worldwide. Less people died from COVID-19 worldwide than the quantity of people that die from the flu in one given year. Right? And this is the statistic was so wild that less people died from COVID-19 throughout the entire world than the number of people that died in America with the flu between October and February in one given year, where COVID was like 3 or 4 years long, right? Because it was like 2018 in October when it started becoming a thing in 2019, really hit the books in 2020 when everything started getting shut down, and then we started recovering from it in 2021, right? But each year, the flu killed like 54 million plus people. We didn't get like 100 million people die from COVID. That's not what happened. I think we barely had 500 million, 500,000 people. We probably had probably 20 to 50 million people died from COVID worldwide. I don't know. I have to go look at the statistics, but it was far less people died from COVID from the time it started till the time it was over than the number of people who died from the flu each year. So that means since COVID was a multi-year thing, the flu throughout COVID killed more people than COVID killed people. So I'm like, and then statistics show that you can slip and fall and bust your head open faster than you can die from COVID. So, and you can slip and fall and bust your head open faster than you get shot. So, looking at probabilities here, he says it's hard to make an informed decision when the government and big pharma lie to us. Well, the government and big pharma are not the ones that's telling us a lie. We're telling us a lie, and that's part of the reason why self-doubt can control the narrative in our lives. Big pharma sets a price and says, "Oh, well, if you buy my drugs, then you're going to be healthy." Everyone with common sense, special shout out to Daniel. Everyone with common sense knows that the body's self-healing. So antibiotics only boost the immune system for the body to self-heal. Now, the contradiction is yes, there is some medications that aids the body in expediting recovery, but the body self heals. So if you believe that the only way that you're going to stay healthy is if you take a shit ton of drugs, you're fooling yourself. That's not big pharma. Big pharma setting a price on that. The government didn't sell us on drinking milk every day. Farmers did. What did they do with milk? Is the most unhealthy thing that humans can drink. Now, I mean, if we were doing breast milk, it would be fine, but we have socially devalued breast milk as adults. That's nasty, right? But goat milk, cow's milk, we're encouraged to do that instead. Why? Because they get paid for that. Milk does the body good. There has never been a study that proves that cow's milk makes humans healthier. Now, over the years, they have genetically modified organisms infused certain vitamins and nutrients into the milk, but that doesn't make it healthier, right? But when we drink milk, what do we tell our kids? Drink the milk. It'll make you big and strong. No, the fuck it won't. Your ass will be big and strong because of your genetic DNA structure. The government isn't lying to us about that. Big Pharma's not lying to us about that. We lie to ourselves about that. We find out this is the fucked up part. When we get older, 30, 40, 50 years old, we start becoming lactose intolerant. You learn in biology class that lactose and lactate, byproducts of dairy, like milk and shit like that, actually shuts down your respiratory system. So the isomers that so you take in the oxygen, the isomers that splits into two different isomers, and one of them creates the ATP that creates the energy that gives your body energy to function, and then the other one shuts down your respiratory system and says, "Hey, you don't need any more energy." And what do? Dairy. We get cow's milk, put it in ice cream, we consume it. Cow's milk, put it in the cheese, we consume it. The body is not supposed to take that in, but we take it in. Take too much of it in, respiratory system shuts down. We start getting lazy because we don't have the energy to get up and form for a function. Big business isn't doing that to us. Government's not doing that to us. Big pharma's not doing that to us. We're doing that to us. We like the 31 flavors from Baskin Robbins. It's our fault. First person accountability. But that's our fault. Uh, the surplus cheese that government buy from the farmers to keep them in business must be healthy. Government actually uses based cheese. That's not government cheese that's used. Government cheese. That's one of the reasons why people used to mock the government cheese because the government cheese isn't made from cow's milk. It's oil based byproducts. Uh, you've got the name brand cheese that tastes better than the government cheese that's made from cow's milk. But I understand where your joke was coming from. No, it's not healthy for us. We eat it. It's not healthy for us. Truthfully, as much as society would frown upon it, and actually it would bring more value to women, if we milked women and drink that every day, we would actually have healthier human beings. It's just going to be serious about it because human breast milk is healthier for human beings. Cow's milk is healthy for cows. Think about that. So the next time you want to order your white Russian at the bar, ask them to throw some breast milk in it. Everybody's gonna look at you weird, but it's healthier. Just trying to tell you. Now, let's get into the second pattern because we're like one third of the way through this, 2 hours into the show. The chronic undervaluing of oneself. And I think that this is partially going to be where we start tiptoeing into low self esteem, but it's not 100% low self esteem. Professionally, this is going to be the freelancer who charges way less than her male peers for the same work. Um, it's the employee who accepts the first salary offered without a counteroffer, believing that she should just be grateful that she's got a job. You got to understand, women aren't the only ones who do this. Men do this too. But this is self sabotaging for the valuable women. It's going to be the entrepreneur who frames her expert services as just helping out a friend because it feels awkward to put a price on her value. Now, this is a huge factor in the gender pay gap based on the latest data for the mid 2020s. So everything from 2020 to now. The uncontrolled gap shows women earning around 82 cents for every dollar that a man earns, which is a lot more than what they used to make. Economies, economists estimate that over a 40-year career, the cumulative loss from a gap this size can easily reach hundreds of thousands of dollars and for high earners can approach or even exceed $500,000. The dating parallel is just a start. It's settling for a partner who gives you breadcrumbs of attention and convincing yourself that it's a meal. It's tolerating disrespect or broken promises because deep down you don't believe that you deserve better. It's over investing in someone who doesn't reciprocate, hoping that if you just give enough, that you can earn the love that should be freely given. Now, again, I tell you, men go through this as well. But right now, we're focusing on some of the things that women self sabotage with. Now, the root cause is an internalized belief that says, I'm not worth that much. And this is going to be where we're tiptoeing into low self esteem. It's a deep seated feeling of inadequacy that gets projected onto the market as a price tag. We're often taught to downplay financial motives, making direct asks for money or for more effort in a relationship feel greedy or needy. I keep telling y'all, fuck that shit. Stake claim in what you believe that you are supposed to get out of this situation before you start performing. Because if you don't give me whatever you think I'm worth, could end up leaving you with nothing. Set an expectation, and if they give you more than that, thank you. The market impact is a compounding disaster here. An early salary discount doesn't just affect that one job, it sets a lower baseline for every future job, creating a massive wealth gap over a timeline. In dating, it attracts partners looking for cheap emotional labor, not an equal partnership, creating a cycle of unfulfilling relationships. Pattern number three is going to be pattern number three of seven. We got seven of these. Is going to be self diminishing communication. Now, this one isn't really about low self esteem, but it actually could be impacted by low self esteem. This is going to be one that is all about the words that we choose to use. Professionally, it's the constant hedging, starting a critical email with sorry to bother you instead of just getting to the point. Presenting a brilliant idea with this might be a dumb question, but it's using soft language like I just think or I kind of feel like. What? Instead of declarative statements like I'd recommend or my analysis shows. Confidently staking claim on the information that you have and articulating it with confidence. It's a verbal tick that screams, don't take me too seriously, even when what you've started saying is dead serious information. Like, you need to act on this. Very important information. But if you deliver it as, you know what, you don't got to listen to me. Why the fuck am I talking then? I expect you to listen to me. That's why I'm talking. And you need to be on that level of assertion. In the dating world, this looks like walking on eggshells to avoid upset partner. You shouldn't have to walk on eggshells to not upset the partner, but you should respect the expectations of the partner and perform to the magnitude of what y'all agreed on when y'all had of what they expect you to do, and you agreed to do that. That's what you should be doing. And they should not have to come back and talk to you about it every week. They shouldn't have to come and talk to you about it every 3 days. They shouldn't have to have the same conversation with you every month. If you know what they expect of you, you should be on autopilot getting that done on a regular basis, right? But you also need to make sure that you articulate your needs. Hiding your needs because you don't want to be a burden, that's not acceptable either. Apologizing for having normal human emotions or for asking for clarity is also not going to benefit you. Now, fucking over the other person and then tell them I'm sorry after the fact is not acceptable either. You should respect the people that you're with. If you know that what you're about to do might compromise the other person, you should not take that action. You should articulate to that person when that person is readily available. what you're trying to accomplish so that that person can make arrangements to be available for you so that y'all can accomplish that as a group. You should not fuck over the other person. And then after you've thoroughly fucked over the person and gotten what you were looking for out of the deal, because that other person articulates how you have yet again disadvantaged them, that you hit them with the I'm sorry after the fact as if that makes up for deliberately fucking over the other person. That's not acceptable. That's actually incorrect and unfavorable behavior. It actually sabotages the relationship that you two have. Because if you can count on them when your back is turned, when you're asleep, when you're in the middle of doing something else, or if you're just laying in bed watching TV all day, if you can count on somebody else to come through for you without you having to say shit, then at the end of the day, you should be able to come through for that person without ever having them come and tell you anything. You should already know what needs to be done based on what's not getting done and get that done so that the other person doesn't have to come back to you and ask you or tell you multiple times to get it done. So if you've heard these things ain't gotten done yet and they need to be done, and every day you walk past it and you see that it needs to be done, but you're not doing it, you're failing the partnership that you're in. And a lot of times people do it on purpose. Sometimes they do it on purpose. Well, I'm old or I'm hurt. They make excuses. But the fact is that you're capable and you're unwilling. And that is dragging down the collective. It demoralizes the group. If you are a soldier in the army and you are not performing, your platoon will suffer for your lack of effort. In basic training, the person who slacks off puts the rest of the group into unnecessary basic training. That makes them put you in line. But if you guys find yourselves in combat, if you're the least performing person, you're holding back the squad. That either gets you killed or somebody else killed because you're not performing. Lemon, special shout out to Lemon. Hello, good to see you. So it is very important when you know you don't have to wait until you hear your partner working themselves to death for you to show up and start performing. You know that your partner operates when you're not paying attention. So in that dynamic, you should be able to get up and proactively find more things to do than what you ever thought possible because you've got a partner that's going to overachieve when you're asleep. They're going to overachieve when your back's turned. They're going to overachieve when you're not here. They're going to overachieve when you're laying in bed watching TV. They're going to overachieve when you're not focused on what they're doing. So you shouldn't wait until you hear a noise like, oh shit, they're in there doing stuff. Let me go see what they're doing and try to match that. That's disrespectful because you're only putting on a show. You're not deliberately trying to be helpful. And that show disappoints the other person because they know you're only coming out the woodwork like a roach because you heard them doing something, not because you were actively trying to be helpful. Because you should be helpful when nobody's looking at you. You should be useful when nobody's watching you. You should be proactive when nobody's listening for your movements in the house. But if you're in that type of relationship where you're only going to do when you think you're being seen and heard, you're a burden on that dynamic. Okay. And that sabotages your relationships because that resentment builds. The other person that's doing so much for you that you can't succeed without them. And that person is carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders and you're making it worse by dragging them down by not being productive, that just makes the resentment between the two of y'all. They're not going to tell you a lot of the time that you are causing them to dislike you because of your lack of performance. They're just going to distance themselves from you. They're going to not communicate with you as much. They're going to not find time to be around you as much. They're not going to be available to go places with you as much. They're not going to spend as much money on you as they would have had you not been a burden. And you're a burden because you're less productive, not because you cost more. You could be the cheapest person in the group, but you are less productive. You're not contributing to the success of the collective, which makes you dead weight. If we had to row the boat as a group and you're the only person not rowing, you could be the lightest person in the group, but your lack of effort makes this harder on everybody else that's rowing. You are causing us to do more unnecessarily. So if it's a two-person situation, both of y'all are supposed to be performing, not just one. And not just once a week either. We're both supposed to be performing all the time. Tolerating a major misalignment on values to avoid a fight, just hoping that problems will go away, is going to be the byproduct of this. And this is an issue. And it leads to dissatisfaction in a relationship. The root cause, it's a learned response. For many women, directness has been punished. They were labeled bossy or bitchy. I'm not going to lie. A woman that comes off overly aggressive, I'm going to straight up assume either bossy or bitchy. But I actually also experience a culture where they are, in fact, overly aggressive and unnecessarily demanding. I'm not saying that you don't have a right to say what you want to say and articulate your concerns and your needs, but the same way that women believe that a man should deliver it a certain way, I believe that that should be uniform. You should be delivering the information to me as if I'm the leader, not as if I'm your servant. So when you come off as I'm your servant, it doesn't mesh well with me. I'll get it done because, unlike women who will shut down if the delivery isn't successful, men will take the delivery and accomplish the task because the information in the delivery was what was important, not the delivery itself. Women, the delivery is what was important, not the information in the delivery, right? But hedging becomes a form of social armor, a way to present an idea without taking the full social risk of owning that idea. The market impact is a slow erosion of authority. Colleagues, bosses, and partners will unweigh your ideas alongside the confidence of your delivery. So when you constantly diminish your own contributions, you're training people not to see you as a leader. You're communicating that you're a subordinate, even if your title says otherwise. Now, if you're trying to be in a regular traditional relationship, being a subordinate and presenting yourself as a subordinate might be effective. However, articulating from a sense of confidence still gives you self leadership in a collective where, while you might follow the authority of the leader that you've assigned to the pack, you still recognize that I'm not going to let you sink the ship. While I might steer the ship in the direction that you tell me to, I'm not going to steer the ship into a fucking iceberg. We're getting out of here. You understand? Because, like in the military, a commanding officer can march you off a cliff and you can fall to your death under command. But self will say, no, I will die if I do that unnecessarily in basic training. And that doesn't show my loyalty to my country. I'm not doing that. Right? There's a difference between blind loyalty and mutual respect. Now, pattern number 4 out of 7, the addiction to harmony. And y'all got to understand, I'm going to tell y'all again, men do this too, but today we're talking about how women self sabotage. Now, the women who master this is often the most likely person in the office and the most beloved friend. She's most liked in the office and most beloved friend. She is also the most likely to be burning out, always exhausted. Professionally, this is the person who cannot say no. She takes on extra work, even when she's drowning, because she doesn't want to let the team down. She avoids the tough but necessary conversations about her own pay. Crucially, she's often taken on the office housework, doing all of the mediocre tasks, organizing the events, mentoring junior staff, being the team's emotional support, tasks that are vital but almost never recognized in promotions, because promotions are going to be given to the people who bring the most money into the company, not the people who keep the spirits of the crew up. Promotions are given to the people who accomplish more tasks in a shorter period of time, not the people who keep the crew motivated to do them damn tasks, right? Dating parallel is going to be the partner who overinvests to a fault. She ignores giant red flags to keep the peace. She avoids the what are we talk because she's terrified of the answer. not identifying the status of your relationship because you fear that we're not in the same place. Her primary goal is not to build a healthy relationship, but to avoid the discomfort of conflict in the relationship at any cost. The root cause is a deep seated conditioning to protect relationships above all else. When conflict leads to punishments, being agreeable feels like a survival strategy. I'm going to tell you, even in my house, being agreeable is not going to help. That is the worst survival strategy to do with me. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, you have to articulate not only that you do not agree, but why do you not agree and make that shit make sense. Agreeing with me just so that I'll shut up is only going to piss me off because I'm not necessarily wrong, but you're agreeing to cooperate with me under the falsehood that we're both seeing eye to eye in this conversation. When we don't see eye to eye in this conversation, then you're going to proactively do the exact opposite of what you agreed to because you only agreed to avoid conflict, but you didn't agree with the decisions and expectations that was laid out for you. That's like promising to do something with your fingers crossed, and then when somebody holds you accountable for it, my fingers were crossed. It's disrespectful. If you're not gonna fucking perform, say that shit. Don't agree to perform and then fail to perform and then have to be coached the second time on why the fuck you didn't perform when you said that you would. The problem is the strategy prioritizes short term peace over long term respect. You are disrespecting your partner. You're disrespecting your significant other. You're disrespecting the other person that you are in this situation with by bullshitting the person so that you can avoid conflict, so that you can avoid addressing the issues. Because you might have things that piss you off, but you're not going to say anything. You're just going to passive aggressively not cooperate, which makes it harder for the other person. But if you've got the least responsibility out of the group, and you're being non-cooperative, you're unnecessarily making it harder for the person that's doing all the work. And for what reason? Because you didn't agree with what they had to say and you didn't speak up for yourself. The market impact is a catastrophic misallocation of your resources. The time spent on non-promotable tasks or on propping up a one-sided relationship is time not spent on strategic work that actually fulfills you. The organization runs smoothly on her invisible labor, but her own career stalls out at the same time. The relationship feels stable, but it's the stability of a hostage situation, not a partnership. Now, pattern number 5 of 7 is the illusion of preparation. And this is going to be one of the sneakiest forms of self sabotage because it looks and feels so productive. Professionally, it's spending weeks refining a slide deck past the point of diminishing returns. It's the endless tweaking a proposal instead of launching it. It's using preparation as a shield for inaction. I'll start my business as soon as I finish this one last online course. When we were talking about, I was talking to one of the landscapers, and he was telling me about how his daughter was going to college and she was going to be like a dental hygienist or something like that. But she has like 2 years of high school left. I told him, I said, you know what? One of the best things that she can do right now is start volunteering with a dental hygienist in our area. She gets out of school around 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The offices usually stay open till about 5. And then after 5, they still got to close up. So they might still be in the office till 6 or 7. She can get 4 hours a day, 2 or 3 days a week, starting now in the 11th grade, where she not only would have 2 years worth of volunteer hours by the time she gets out of high school, so that when she applies for her college application, she can use that on her college application, but she can also meet and greet the people who work in the field that she wants to do. She can do the stuff that she's legally authorized to do because she's over the age of 16 at 11th grade. She's like 17, almost 18, something like that, right? So she can get in there and file files and take out trash and organize paperwork and answer phones and whatever the fuck you tell her to do, but get the inside scoop on what's going on. She can shadow certain providers with certain patients with the patient's consent so that she can learn how to get this stuff done. She can talk to the doctors after hours and get information on how stuff had to be accomplished in order to get to where that doctor is now. The inside scoop that's not taught in class, right? Which gives her a leg up. Then when she gets into college, she can turn that from a volunteer situation to a paid internship, where instead of them giving her a direct paycheck, they could be giving her money for college, helping her out with her tuition, right? Using that paid internship as on the job work experience, leading to getting out of college. What's your 4 year degree? Turns out to be 6 years usually. And if you did undergrad, it might be 8 years. By the time you get out of college, you would have did this job for 2 years in high school and 4, 6, or 8 years by the time you got out of college. You walk out of college with your bachelor's degree and almost a decade of experience in the field. You can apply anywhere and get you a job, right? But that happens because you are prepared. If you say, well, I'm going to start doing that after I graduate, or I'm going to start doing my internships after I get my bachelor's degree, or you're delaying your future, knowing that there is a criteria that needs to be met before you get to the next phase. If you don't perform that until after you finish this, when both of those things could have been done simultaneously, you are delaying your future, which leads to inaction because I'm never going to start my career because I haven't met the criteria. The dating market version is creating an impossible milestone. And this is going to be a mile long checklist for a partner that no human could ever meet, like women wanting 6'5", making over 100 grand, got to be a certain skin complexion, owning all their own shit with good credit. You're talking about 1% of human beings in the world. And 90 something percent of women are after that 1%. So you're talking about probably a million people out of 8 billion people that meet this description, and 4 billion of the people that are looking for this 1 million people around the world. That is your odds. You start making it impossible to find the perfect person. It's going to be exaggerating in endless texting, where you start up a conversation with somebody online and you never bring that conversation to an in-person engagement. The performance of connection. You're going to avoid the vulnerability of a real in-person date, right? It's consuming hundreds of hours of relationship advice, researching how to have a good relationship instead of actually being in a relationship and proactively practicing these things. The root cause is that over preparation is a socially acceptable form of avoidance. Take, for example, GTA 6. They've been working on GTA 6 since 2019. It's been almost 10 years. The fact is all of the extra delays, while it could perceivably be the perfect game, right? They say right now there's only like 50 hours of gameplay on the hard disk, where some of the older games probably had like 24 to 36 hours worth of gameplay. So 50 hours of gameplay, 50 hours of guaranteed gameplay before we start talking about online gameplay, 50 hours of guaranteed gameplay. The average person doesn't have, as an adult, enough time to spend more than 4 to 6 hours a day on that game. So if you only got like 4 to 6 hours a day on that game, and you're looking at 50 hours of gameplay, right? That means that you've got at least 2 to 3 weeks worth of gameplay. So the first 30 days that that game is out, you are likely to beat that game inside of 4 weeks. Whereas back in the day with the 24 to 36-hour gameplay, that you would likely beat that game inside of 3 days, likely beat the game 4 times inside of a month. So they took almost 10 years to give you 4 weeks worth of satisfaction before we start talking about online gameplay, right? The endless delays is unnecessary. They could have just put the game out with fucking 40 hours of gameplay and put the game out 5 years ago and put the rest of that information as renewable downloadable content for GTA 7 and GTA 8 as extensions to GTA 6. But society accepts performance delays as acceptable. It gives you the feeling of progress while safely protecting you from the risk of actually shipping your work or opening your heart to somebody else. The delays, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. Allows you to delay it. And people will accept that delay because we expect it to be better than we ever thought possible, right? You can't fail if you never leave the starting gate, right? But you can't succeed if your ass don't start running. Now, the market impact is going to be simple here. In a fast moving market, speed and iteration beat delayed perfection on a regular basis. You notice when two companies are trying to launch similar products around about the same time, the company that launches first, even if it's imperfect, is better than the company that launches second, even if the product is perfect. While you're busy polishing your masterpiece in a cave, a bolder competitor has already launched a good enough version and is capturing the market. In dating, while you're busy researching life, life is passing you by. Now, pattern number 6 out of 7, inconsistent follow through on critical tasks. Now, this pattern is maddening because it is so selective. This person is often incredibly reliable on low stakes things. She'll never miss a friend's birthday. Her daily tasks are always done, but she consistently blows the deadlines for the big life changing things: the grant application, the promotion portfolio, the business plan. She has a graveyard of half finished products, incomplete projects, and other tasks that could have transformed her career. I have a buddy right now who has had a plethora of ideas on paper. And I actually had to have a whole conversation with him 4 or 5 times about this over the last decade, where I've explained to him, like, bro, you have so many good ideas on paper, but you never pursue that idea to a paycheck. You've created apps, you've created games, you've created programs, you've created sellable items that you didn't sell, and they just evaporated into a dusty workspace scenario where you're still working for somebody else, never turn a profit on any of your ideas, but you're still in a position of, man, I wish I was a millionaire. But if you got $1 million idea and you never do anything with it, it is never going to become anything. The dating equivalent is the person who talks constantly about wanting a serious relationship, but finds a way to torpedo every promising relationship that could come about. The moment things start getting good, she'll pull away. She picks a fight, she finds a flaw, and blows it out of proportion. She fails to follow through on the very thing that would deepen the bond, which the irony is a lot of women that claim that they're looking for a good man don't actually go after good men. They go after the guy that's not going to be a successful resolution for a relationship, avoiding the ones that would be a successful resolution for a relationship, calling those men too needy and simps. Well, if you wanted a man that was committed to you, willing to worship the ground that you walk on, you shouldn't put that guy in a friend zone and say that that's creepy because he's too needy. That is exactly what the fuck you said you wanted. And that's not what you're chasing. You're chasing the guy that can give two shits about you because he's dating your sister and your mom at the same time. That's the guy that you chase. When is it going to be my turn? Wild. The root cause is a deep fear of success and a desire to protect one's self image. By not completing the high stakes tasks, you keep out the hypothetical. Meaning, what if always can stay? What if I never apply the effort to turn if into an actual final outcome? So you can tell yourself, I could have been successful artist if I had just finished the portfolio. It allows you to maintain the idea of your potential without ever putting it to the test. Not trying feels safer than trying and failing. I tell people all the time that phrase, you've got potential, is a compliment and an insult at the same time. Because the true definition of potential in science is the ability to do something that you are currently not doing, which in layman's terms means that you're fucking up your future presently. The ability to do something that you are currently not doing. Kinetic energy is you doing what you are capable of doing. And ironically, you cannot surpass your own capabilities. You can surpass your own expectations of your capabilities, but you cannot surpass your own capabilities. Take, for example, hypothetically, Goku. My man has unlimited potential. Why? Because he has the ability to be way better than what he currently is, no matter which season you look at him. And he always continues to push harder and try more to reach the next level, the next level, the next level, right? He continuously surpasses everyone else's expectations, but he never reaches his full potential. He never plateaus in his capabilities because you cannot exceed your own capabilities. You can only exceed natural expectations. So he could be the legendary Super Saiyan because nobody thought that a Saiyan could be that powerful. He could be a god mode, godlike, because nobody believes that a living creature can have that much power. It's just exceeding expectations. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, meaning that you meet all the expectations on my list, are you a 10? Well, if you believe that you're a 10, that means that there's nothing about you that I would complain about, right? That is exceeding my expectations. But if you recognize that there's some shit about you that you don't like, there's some shit about you your friends don't like, there's some shit about you your family doesn't like, you're not a 10, right? There are things about you that you could change, you just choose not to change them. You're good enough. You believe that you're a catch, but you're a catch with flaws, like a Porsche with dents, right? Now, somebody who doesn't care about those dents will pick you up. Somebody who cares about those dents are probably going to negotiate down the price. Some who don't want those dents are going to walk away from you altogether. But you're not perfect. Just because somebody's willing to accept a Porsche with dents doesn't mean that that Porsche is perfect. It just means that that person was willing to settle for a dented Porsche as opposed to settling for a non-dented Porsche. What's the market impact here? Markets reward consistency. A track record of starting strong but fading on the big project brands you as unreliable. In relationships, it signals to healthy partners that you're unavailable for real commitment, attracting only those people who are comfortable with that same inconsistency. And before we go any further on this is huge because when you wonder why you can't find a good man, if your behavior patterns is projecting the inconsistencies of commitment, and you're attracting the men that are inconsistent with commitment, and you're not able to lock down a marriage because the guy that you want doesn't want to marry you, that's because you're projecting yourself as non-valuable to the kind of man that would marry you based on your behavior patterns, based on your performance levels, based on your dialogue, based on your ability to cooperate or the lack thereof of all of those factors. Pattern number 7 of 7. We're not 60% through right now. We still got 30 pages left. The scarcity mindset. We got to get through this one. So let's talk about the scarcity mindset. Professionally, this is the belief that there's not enough room at the top. They say that one is the loneliest number that you can ever do. It's seeing another woman's success not as inspiration, but as a sign that one of the few available slots for a woman has been taken. It's viewing another person's ambition as direct competition to be guarded against rather than potential allies. One of the things I've seen, like, for example, in anything, in career, in sports, in politics, when society says the first woman to do, or the first woman whatever, or uh, a woman champion or a woman gold medalist, or this, when you have to attach her gender to her success, she couldn't just be the best one in the group. She couldn't just be the best one in the competition. She has to be the best one for a woman. First female vice president. Next up is going to be the first female president. Couldn't just say the next president, right? In doing so, the success of her reaching that platform societally identifies that that leadership position and other leadership positions like it is now filled and there's other room for women. That's not true. That's actually not true. The more that becomes successful, the more room there is for more women to become successful. Women could effectively, if they weren't tyrants in authoritarian positions, actually do a pretty decent job of leading things because they're not swayed by desire. Men can be corrupted through lust. Women can be corrupted through money. But if she's got more money than what she needs, it's not much that you can offer her because it's like she don't need nothing else, right? The dating pool is going to be a lot parallel to that. It's similar, right? This is going to be the chorus of there are no good men slash women left in the dating pool because men experience the same things. It's viewing others as rivals fighting over a limited pool of desirable partners. And I can agree with that to a magnitude, specifically because there's going to be non-valuable people in the dating pool than there are valuable people in the dating pool because the non-valuable people will always be single because they're not relationship material. They're not marriage material. A valuable individual in the cluster of non-valuable individuals is hard to pick out because it is your performance after the fact that has to be judged during your interaction during first contact with the person, where the guy's got to pull you away from the crowd and presumably have selected the correct woman that actually will perform in the relationship. And it's tough because if a guy grabs the wrong girl, he can only get one girl out of the group unless all the girls are not valuable because then they'll share. He can only grab one woman out of the group, right? And if he gets the right one, so it's a toss up. If there's 5 girls, he's got a 20% chance he's going to get the right one. If he gets the right one, he's got the problem that the other 4 will block him from being successful. Not because he's a bad guy, not because he's a threat to her safety, because the other women in the group didn't get chosen. A lot of times jealousy. They're not doing it to protect their homegirl. They're going to force their homegirl to never be happy because the other four girls are single. So they're going to force her to stay single too. Oh, don't talk to him. He's creepy. Right. But Cinderella's prince, she didn't know who the fuck he was. Snow White's prince, he found her while she was knocked out. Rapunzel's prince climbed a wall. She didn't even know who the fuck he was. Every story that you have where a woman fell in love with a guy who came out of nowhere and made her life better all came from the same dynamic that a stranger of a man can become the best thing that could ever happen to your life. So why do women in modern 2026 shame men for approaching women, but expect men to approach women and then block the man when he approaches a woman because he didn't approach you as a woman? Think about that for a second. It's developing a cynical, defeatist attitude that leads you to opt out of dating entirely because the whole thing just seems hopeless. The root cause often comes from tokenism. When you only ever see one or two women in leadership, you internalize the belief that those positions are scarce. It's just, it's not true. It's just that not a lot of people apply for that. uh, and this gets worse with an internalized sense of patriarchy that pits women against each other for male approval or resources. Take, for example, we have so many women in hospitality: waiters, shop girls, strippers, dancers, escorts, teachers, nurses. Not that many women working on oil rigs. Not that we start to see more women in construction, but not that many women digging ditches, right? We see them in healthcare. We see them as nurses. We see them as nannies, as babysitters, right? But we don't see them out in the field picking corn, right? Plowing fields. I mean, we'll see that in Asia, but we don't see that in America, right? And they'll claim that it's a male dominant industry. It's not a male dominant industry. It's just that women don't want to do that hard ass manual labor work. They don't want to do that dangerous ass life threatening work. How many women do you see climbing a 50-story light pole to work on a power line? That's typically a man's job. Not because it's gender exclusive to men, it's because not too many women want to be that far off the ground fucking with electricity. But that job gets hazard pay for being that far off the damn ground, right? And then here's the funny part: Hollywood puts an attractive woman 100 feet off the ground, tightrope walking in an action movie because it's actually appealing to men to see women be just as adventurous as men. But in actual practice, women don't do that. Why do you think Laura Croft was so awesome? Not just because of her figure and the camera angles, but because she was out there doing the same shit as Indiana Jones. The stories that Laura Croft had with Tomb Raider were shitty stories, but the action was awesome because she was out there like Jackie Chan getting it done, right? But in modern day to day behavior, women claim that they can't because it's a man's job, and women don't understand. You could have done that. You could change your own tire. You could change your own oil. You can get your own car out of the ditch, right? But you don't because it's a man's job. And that's where the 18% pay gap comes from. The choice to do less and get paid less to do less. It's a choice. The market impact is that you take yourself out of the game. And just as importantly, you weaken your own power base. By seeing other women as competition, you miss the chance to form powerful coalitions and support networks that are essential for success. It keeps the very structure that you're trying to navigate in place because you're doing the work of dividing and conquering for them. Now, beyond these patterns, there are quieter, more unorthodox forms of self sabotage. And these behaviors fly under the radar because they can be disguised as being smart or self aware. But in reality, they're just as corrosive. One of the most common is outsourcing self trust. And this looks like getting input. Women do this all the time to men. Does that outfit make my butt look big? Does this make me look fat? Do I look cute in this outfit? It's really a habit of handing off major life decisions. It's asking your partner, your parents, or a group chat if a major career move is worth it. Then backing down if they show the slightest hesitation, right? If you do not get sociological support for the decision that you already know that you want to make, you end up not making that decision. You use their conflicting opinions as a reason to stay put. The impact, you never build your own internal compass. Your life is capped by the risk tolerance of the most anxious person in your circle, the most naysaying some bitch in your group. Another is weaponizing high standards to hide avoidance. I'm going to tell you this again, weaponizing high standards to hide avoidance. And this isn't having healthy standards. This is the person whose standards are vague, constantly shifting, or selectively enforced to dodge commitment. Professionally, she rejects every job offer because it's not a perfect fit without ever defining what a perfect fit even is. In dating, she is a giant checklist, and he must be this tall, have this much income, be fully healed, but then he ends up with chaotic partners anyway because of chemistry, right? She'll date Chris Brown because they had chemistry. She was looking for a saint, but she had chemistry with a sinner. Crazy, right? The high standards are a smokescreen. The real goal is to stay perpetually in transition, never having to plant a flag and build something real. Then there's the tendency to equate calm with boring. And this is a lot of women have this problem. And this is a killer in both work and love. For some, especially those who grew up in chaotic environments, stability feels unnerving. Peace feels like boredom. And professionally, this leads them to getting restless in stable, successful roles. Instead of building on that stability, they unconsciously start to sabotage it, missing deadlines, creating drama, because chaos feels more familiar and you feel more alive. In dating, this is the person who complains there are no fights and then provokes one just to feel a spark of passion. The devastating impact is that they can never capitalize on the power of stability. Secure partners feel boring, and only volatile partners feel attractive. Women wonder why they have a problem where they're always starting over. You find yourself 35, 45 years old, starting in a new relationship yet again, never knowing why you can't find the right one. That's because the right one is the best friend that you don't want to date, and all the wrong ones is the other guys that you're physically attracted to because you're attracted to toxic. Lastly, a particularly corrosive saboteur is letting online narratives run your reality. This is adapting generalized, often toxic scripts from social media and applying them to the specific people in your life. It's internalizing a TikTok pop philosophy and the psychologies that are diagnosing every manager as a narcissist or every partner's mistake as gaslighting. And women do this a lot nowadays. When a woman doesn't like what a man has to say, he's either gaslighting or he's a narcissist. And the truth of the matter is that you just disagree with him asking you to change for the betterment of your relationship. You end up reacting to a distorted mashup of the internet's worst case scenarios, not the actual nuanced human in front of you. This makes real connections and trust impossible because you're arguing with a meme, not your partner. You're fighting a caricature, not your boss. And these quiet saboteurs are dangerous because they let us feel intelligent and justified in our inaction, but they are just more sophisticated forms of fear keeping us stuck, which is why I said earlier, this isn't just low self esteem. This is actually the fear of doing something that we don't know is going to end out well. Well, recognizing these patterns is going to be the first step. And a lot of the times, the hardest step. But recognition without action is just another form of procrastination. So let's talk strategy. Breaking the cycle isn't about some magical overnight transformation. You don't take a pill and make it better. It's about making small, smart changes that over time rewrite your default settings. So the first thing we want to do, language audit. For a week, track every time that you use minimizing words. Every just, every maybe, every I'm not sure, but every reflexive sorry. Keep a note on your phone. At the end of the week, look at the list. This is the language of self diminishment. The first step is awareness. The next step is replacement. Instead of sorry for the delay, try thanks for your presence or thank you for your patience. Instead of I just think we should, try I recommend we do, right? This isn't about being aggressive, it's about being clear and direct. It's about taking up the verbal space that you deserve. The second, set explicit market based goals. Vague goals like be more successful are useless. I tell y'all, these are those Miss American answers that people give. You need precise targets. What's the exact job title that you want? What's the exact annual income you are aiming for? These are the same questions you should be asking for your fucking retirement. What are the three non negotiable qualities that you need in a partner? Write them down. Be specific. Then tie your daily actions to these goals. Before you say yes to a new task or a second date, ask yourself, does this move me closer to my goals? If the answer is no, then you got to decline, delegate, or renegotiate. This forces you to align your actions with your ambitions. If you're looking for a stable guy, you're looking for a boring guy. If a boring guy asks you to go out on a date and that boring guy asks you to go somewhere that is going to be fucking boring, then guess what? You've got stability. You might want to go on that second date and see what stability looks like. He's consistent. He always shows up on time. He's always where he says he's going to be. That makes him reliable. There's no thrill in your situation. That's fine. Renegotiate something collectively exciting, but it's structured excitement, like going to a theme park because you budgeted for it. You don't got to worry about him cheating on you. He can be found at all times. You can set your watch to him. That is what you need in stability, which means no surprises. You want surprises. Okay, we're going to structure surprises. But structured surprises is not as enthusiastic as random chaos. So you got to get used to structured surprises because that's where your stability is going to come from, right? Now, the third thing is going to be practice. You need to practice imperfect actions. Perfectionism is the mother of procrastination. Same thing, like take what happens with the podcast. We start whenever, but we don't start whenever because I spend 45 extra minutes trying to make the show perfect. We start whenever because whenever the fucking internet gets on track, we're gonna air this fucking show. But even if it ain't ready, even if I don't got it all together, this bitch is gonna air. And it's gonna air, and I'm gonna fix it and make it up as we go along, right? Because the antidote that is the rule of imperfection contradicts the actions of perfectionism. So you want to adapt the mantra that if I'm 70% ready, I move. If all we need is one thing to get started, we might as well get started now, right? This means applying for the job if you only meet 7 out of 10 qualifications. It means launching the website when it's good enough, not flawless. It means having the awkward conversation with a partner now, not waiting for the perfect moment that will never come. Actions create clarity. You don't find readiness, you build it by doing the thing that you think you're not ready to do. Mama used to tell me on a regular basis if you found somebody that met 80% of the things that you were looking for in life and you could tolerate the other 20, that's the perfect person for you. Why? Because nobody's going to be perfect. But if they can meet the majority of your expectations with no effort, the rest of the shit that they got going on that might be little flaws and pet peeves that you can deal with, that you can deal with, then go for it. You might be the kind of person, like, for example, I don't like excessive piercings. I'm not a big fan of tattoos, but you could have quite a few piercings and some tattoos if you got your shit together, right? But you might be a smoker. I can't do smoker. I got asthma. It's not going to work for us, right? That's the dynamic. So you might have like 5 tattoos. As long as they're not sloppy, I might be able to deal with that, right? You might have 8 piercings on your face, but if it doesn't like cover your whole face and have you looking like the torture guy from Event Horizon, then maybe we can work it out, you know. But those are physical characteristics that are compromisable. That's part of the 20%. You would still have to cooperate. You would still have to be respectful. You would still have to be appreciative. You still have to meet the other 80% of qualifications that would make you a good woman outside of the piercings and the tattoos. But if you're a smoker, like that's out the window. See what I'm saying? Fourth, build and enforce your non-negotiable expectations for behavior. Non-negotiable expectations are not walls. They are clear lines that show people where the door is. Start small. Define your non negotiables. I do not check work emails after 7 o'clock. I don't fuck with people before noon. I tell people, I tell certain people, don't talk to me until Thursday about anything that you got going on in your life. If I said that I will give you my undivided attention on Thursday and you come bring me some bullshit on Wednesday, I'm gonna be mad at you because the first question gonna come out of my mouth is today Thursday or what is today? And you're gonna say Wednesday. Okay, so this could have waited till tomorrow, couldn't it? Yes. So why the fuck are you bringing it to me today? It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's important to you or not. What matters is that I told you that I would be available to you on Thursday, specifically in the afternoon. So you approach me Thursday morning, that's not what I said. You approach me on Wednesday, you approach me on Friday, that's not what I said. I said Thursday afternoon. So Thursday afternoon, you come to me with some bullshit. I have to entertain that because I gave my word that I would be available Thursday afternoon. So you bring me on Tuesday or Saturday some shit that could have waited until Thursday. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. If I do acknowledge it, I'm going to acknowledge it with resentment because I already told you that I'm available on Thursday afternoon. Set your non negotiable expectations for behavior. Things like I do not continue dating someone who cancels plans more than once. I personally don't continue communicating with individuals online who are not willing to have an in-person engagement. I'm going to give you probably the first few days of texting back and forward. And by the third or fourth day, by my first day off, if we're not available to meet up, that conversation is not going anywhere. I'm not going to spend 6 months having an online relationship with shit for anyone, really. Matter of fact, if my goal is to establish a positive engagement with somebody in the Philippines, I'm probably going to start doing that shit as I make my way to the Philippines. Where the I probably will touch down in the city of the person that I'm connecting with so that while I'm in that city, I can establish an in-person relationship with that person fresh off the plane so that before I catch a plane back, we already have an in-person dialogue with one another. We should already have 90 days of interaction with one another, right? That's a huge difference than 2 years of talking to each other on the phone before we actually meet each other. I would immediately, even if it takes like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get from the online to the in person, I would immediately transition from text messages within the first couple days to video calls. That's the closest thing to in person that you can do is transition to video call and then run the video calls until you do the in person. And even after the in person, if the in person can't be frequent, you want to do the video calls on a regular basis to maintain consistency, right? But you want to say your non negotiables calmly and clearly and without an apology. The first time you enforce that non negotiable, it's going to feel incredibly uncomfortable, but you'll want to backtrack on that. And we understand. Hold that line. The temporary discomfort of someone else's disappointment is far less damaging than the long term cost of your own resentment. And that actually benefits the both of you. Because if you are the performer in this relationship with the other person, your expectations from them are mandatorily required because your resentment towards them will cause you to shut down and stop performing, which will negatively impact the other person anyway. So instead of you flexing on your position, your satisfaction is based off of your expectations that they must meet. Employees get paid by the employer, but the employees expect to be treated a certain way on the job. If they are not treated the way they are expected to be treated on the job, they will shut down and stop performing on the job. That negatively impacts the employer. So instead of submitting to unhealthy and negative behavior on the job, which will lead you to resent the job, stop working on the job, you demand to be respected on the job so that you will always perform on the job. That benefits your employer. So don't fold on your non negotiable expectations. Fifth, you want to reframe self promotion as a service. Many of us cringe at self promotion because it feels like bragging. I know I've told you guys a lot of times that you don't brag about your wealth, but you don't. I'm not telling you not to promote your skill set. When I talk to you guys on a regular basis about how to make, save, and invest money, I am promoting the fact that I obtain, retain, and regurgitate the knowledge that could potentially aid you in your decision making process with investing in your own success. I'm not going to diminish that to any capacity because when you do that, it's framing a problem. You want to reframe that from a problem. Sharing your accomplishments is not bragging. It's providing clear factual information so that decision makers can route opportunities to where value is being created. But it is not just promoting your accomplishments, it is where you promote the accomplishments. If you are promoting your accomplishments with your friends, that's bragging. If you're promoting your accomplishments with potential clients, that's advertising. And it depends on which accomplishments are you promoting. If you're promoting your skill set, Even if you're promoting your skill set with your friends, you've created a certain algorithm, you've constructed a certain product that has a certain price point or whatever the case may be. You're still advertising a product to your friends. But if you're talking about how you got a bonus on your job, that's bragging. You're talking about how you got a new Bentley, that's bragging. You're talking about how you got a new house, that's bragging. But I can speak 5 languages, that's not bragging. I can translate for you. These are the 5 languages that I can translate for you. If we go out of town and we end up in a location that speaks this language, I can translate so that we're not stuck and we're not lost. That's a meaningful skill set. So you got to start documenting your wins, but you're not documenting your financial wins, you're documenting your performance wins. Okay. Every week, write down one concrete outcome that you produced. If you generated a certain quantity of revenue for the job, the time that you saved the company, a process that you improved, performance increases, productivity improvements, right? Share these wins in your weekly updates when you're talking to your employers and on board meetings, in talks with your manager, on your LinkedIn accounts. Whenever you have time to update your LinkedIn accounts, you put this information in there. You're not saying I'm great. You're saying here's the value I created over the lifetime that I've been doing this. Now, this data is not ego. And it actually helps an algorithm find you and put you in a position to get you a good job. Finally, the sixth one. This is the sixth unorthodox reason. Address the inner narratives. All of these behaviors are driven by stories that you tell yourself about your worth, your capabilities, and you're allowed to want. You have to start questioning these thoughts. When the voice in your head says, I'm not ready for that, ask yourself, is that a fact or is that an old pattern trying to keep me safe from the threat that no longer exists? Start replacing the old narrative. Instead of, I don't know how, try, I am capable of learning. Instead of saying, I can't, you need to say, I can with the right resources. This inner work isn't easy. It often requires support from a therapist, a coach, or a trusted group of friends who can call you out and hold you accountable. If I'm one of those people in your group, I'm going to pull you out on your bullshit because you're not going to tell me that you can because you don't want to is the only reason why you're not doing that. Because you can do whatever it is that you want to do in life as long as someone else with more authority over the outcome of your situation doesn't try to prevent you from accomplishing your actions. So when you're in situations where your performance is solely based on your performance and there are no external sources with more authority over your outcome to change your outcome, you are the only thing stopping you from being successful. So it's not that you can't, it's that you don't want to. It's not that it's beyond your control. It's you don't want to put up with that bullshit. You don't want to address that. You didn't not tell me because you were trying to protect me. You didn't tell me because you couldn't handle how you felt when I got devastated by the news you had. So you weren't protecting me from the truth. You were protecting yourself from my reaction to the truth. Tell the truth now. If these patterns are resonating, and if you feel that knot in your stomach, as I describe it, know that you are not alone. This is a deeply ingrained system, and recognizing it is the most critical step. The journey out is a process of unlearning. And if you're ready to start, I want you to do one thing in the comment section below. Tell me which of the 7 patterns that hit you the hardest. Really, we had more than 7. Really, we had like 13 patterns because we had 7 common patterns and 6 unorthodox patterns. Naming these patterns is going to be the first act of taking power over this behavior process. And if this is the conversation that you want to continue, you have to make sure that if you haven't done so already, that you subscribe to the channel, hit those notification buttons to the show, double check the membership, because we're just scratching the surface of this. So what's the big takeaway here? It's about a total shift in the perspective. For too long, we've been told that these are personal failings, that we need to lean in more or just be more confident. But it's more useful to see self sabotage as a strategic misallocation of your most precious assets, which is your time, your skills, and your energy. Fixing it is like rebalancing a portfolio that you have to deliberately shift your resources away from low yield, safe feelings behavior and into higher yield, growth oriented action. The patterns we discussed aren't unique to your career or your love life. They are two sides of the same coin. The fear of asking for a raise comes from the exact same place as the fear of asking for commitment. The habit of overgiving at work to be liked is the same habit that leads to burnout in a relationship. It's the same habit as having a community cookout at your house where you're buying all of this food to feed the neighborhood so that they can come to your house and watch the fireworks that you bought with your money. Why are you spending thousands of dollars for your neighborhood to like you? It's the same thing. Your self concept is your brand. And if you see yourself as low value, you will price yourself accordingly in every market you enter. And that's not low self esteem, it's just low self worth, not necessarily the same thing. The most important thing to take away is not a sense of shame, but a sense of clarity. These self sabotaging behaviors are not proof that you are broken, they are the evidence of old survival codes. They are patterns that likely served a real purpose at one point in your life. They kept you safe in a family, an early job, or a social setting where being small was the only way to get by. But that code is now outdated. It's holding you back from the life that you want to build now. And the goal is not to eliminate fear or discomfort. The goal is to learn to function effectively in spite of the fear or discomfort. That is what we call courage. To feel the fear of hitting send on the application, of stating your rate, of having that difficult conversation and to do it anyway. The fear of hitting send after you hit send subsides, but the message got sent. The fear of the response of stating your rates is over once they've responded to your negotiations. The fear of having that difficult conversation with your partner has resolved itself now that they know what they needed to know to continue this relationship or end it in some situations. Lingering on taking that action. Like, for example, you find out you're 3 weeks pregnant, but you don't tell him until you're 6 weeks pregnant. Why? The day you knew is the day I'm supposed to know. I didn't know how you would feel, but your ass ain't gonna find out if you don't say nothing. So the longer you know and wonder and contemplate how I'm going to react to it, the harder it's going to be for you to say something. Then the disappointing, frustrating part that you're going to get from your partner is, why didn't you tell me sooner? Not why did you tell me? Now you have the shame and regret that you didn't say something sooner, and you have the relief that the response was positive, even if it was chastised by you should have said something sooner. You should have said something sooner. Out the gate. Soon as you think that this ain't going well, you should be able to say, hey, this ain't going well. Right? The call is and always was coming from inside of the house. And that is not a cause for terror. It is a source of immense power because it means that the tools to fix it, the keys to the cage, have been in your hands all along. Since the problem is inside of you, it is easy for you to fix the problem. Had it been an external problem, you would need external sources. Because it is an internal problem, you can work on you by yourself and then proactively express this in front of others as you master readdressing how you think about yourself and how you present yourself to others. Now, 3 hours in, we covered a lot of things, ladies, that lead to your ability to not be successful as you would prefer. We're going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give y'all this information to make y'all higher value men, not just to improve your income, but to also improve your decision making skills. Ladies, if you find the things that are inside of your control that you don't like and proactively put forth the effort to change those things, you will find yourself improving your way of life. Then you can navigate around the things that are outside of your control. And while this is a male driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can fit the information that we have just by redirecting your attention to focusing on your 20 and 30-year plan. Reverse engineering that to the things that you have to do today to get to where you want to be at. And as you move along that 20 or 30-year plan, keep your eyes and ears open for the potential suitor that has the right personality characteristics, drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, admiration, and integrity to accomplish their own goals. Because if you find a goal-oriented man, you can test his goals and see if his goals are in line with your goals. Y'all don't have to have the exact same goals, but if they're headed in the same direction, then you guys can accomplish the same. Y'all can tackle each other's goals quickly. It requires both of you to have long-term satisfaction goals, not short-term gratification goals. Because if one of you has short-term gratification goals, one of you will be living in the moment financially, and the other one will be living for the future, and you guys will always be at odds. Right? But I tell you guys on a regular basis that two people can make it to $1 million faster than one. But you have to work together as a collective. So, special shout out to FX Trader, Steven, Michael, OG Kicks, Daniel. I really appreciate you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection that's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.